Hello, everybody. My name is David Griscom. I'm broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York. I'm joined here by super producer Matt Leck, and by comrade and friend and wonderful person, Alicia Brooks. Thank you all for joining us this evening as we take some time to remember and honor and pay tribute to our good friend and teacher, Michael Brooks. We've been so moved over the past week by everybody's love and support, and we really appreciate everything. And we'll have more time later to talk a little bit about what our plans are going forward. But I wanted to open up the floor to everyone here so we could take a couple minutes before we move on to this incredible slate of guests. So many people who have been touched by Michael who have some really great insights to bring to the table. But I just want to open up to Matt and Alicia here.
You know, it has been a bottomlessly painful week, and kind of the one kind of little glimmer of light, or the one thing that kind of seems like, I don't know, that can possibly be made good out of this, is just getting to continue to do Michael's work, and it's been such a blessing being able to talk with you, Matt and David, and kind of just feel closer to Michael by how much time he spent with you. So I feel really grateful that we're able to do this today.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. This basically the support structure Michael left behind with all these amazing people that I don't think a lot of us could connect ourselves to on our own efforts, basically. And yeah, I mean, Michael, his absence will be missed, of course. I've told him before that he was sort of my Russell Brand. He's like Russell Brand if Russell knew a little bit more about politics. It was a little bit more serious about Marxism.
And Michael's a better driver, and that's from a personal experience I've had in Los Angeles.
Yeah. But we're going to do our best, folks, to continue bringing the sort of internet, everything that Michael wanted to bring. We're going to, I mean, he saw it in all of us, and cultivated it in all of us, and we're going to try to continue bringing it to you. So stay with us.
Yeah, and trying to bring that spirit. And I think if we're ready, we have our first guest. Is Michael Brooks' mother, Donna Brooks.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna duck out quick because as I just realized we have a thumbnail issue that we don't want to cover anybody. Okay. So we'll let Donna come in and take my position here. But yeah, exactly. Okay. We'll weave in here, but I'm not going away for good, folks, just so you don't worry.
No.
All right. Here's Donna.
Might take a second.
Yeah, it takes a little.
Okay, no worries.
Hey.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Donna.
Hey. Hello.
You need to turn on your camera when you get a chance.
Oh, why is my camera not on?
do you at the bottom?
I got it.
Okay. All right, you're good.
Oh. That's so funny. It's not. There it goes. Okay.
There we go.
Oops. Okay.
There she is.
Thank you.
So I know the room's not great here, but it's what I got.
Perfect.
What I'm working with.
Well, it's so good to see you. It's great to see your face too.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you so much for joining us and and sharing your son with me. He's been such a big influence on my life, and I'm really happy to be talking with you right now. I heard that you had something that you had a statement or?
Yeah, well, I wanted to just talk a little bit about like what Michael was saying in the last days. I really was touched by the live stream he did, as a lot of people were, on July 19th. Mm-hmm. And he said, what does it actually mean to be truly global to the extent we can, local, national, international, simultaneously, east, west, north, and south, but from a place of actual growth and empathy. And this is where questions of consciousness come in, and the questions of cultivating empathy, compassion, awareness, seeing complexity, comfort with oneself, solitude. These things were always part of Michael's life, and I think they were becoming more and more important to him. And I think he was able to hold two truths about consciousness simultaneously. And one thing is that he got a lot of strength and presence from cultivating stillness and really being able to learn how to listen. And I think that's important for his listeners to know, because I think a lot of the frustration he had about, what was irritating about the left actually came down to this lack of listening. But I also think the ability to listen, especially in stillness and silence, not even necessarily to a person, is what built resilience in him. And these qualities that he's talking about, solitude, the opposite of instant gratification, they demand resilience. And then the other aspect of consciousness that I think Michael was really aware of, and he didn't necessarily talk as much about, but I think really formed his work, influenced his work, is recovery from trauma. And we hear trauma as this giant word, like trauma, like you were in 9/11, so you had a trauma, maybe a head injury or you couldn't hear. But he was very aware that poverty is a trauma, homelessness is a trauma, capitalism is a trauma for most people. And so, yes, these things need structural change, but it's also these things play with our nervous systems and our reactions as individuals. And doing that work of unwinding the personal trauma is what also really informed his work. And so that's just what I thought when I read that quote. And I think it also flows into another quote he said, when he said, the cause is bigger than any individual, but the individual is the most important thing of any cause. And that's our challenge, not just on the left, but ideally as all human beings. And I do want to say just a couple more things, because I also, so proud of him when he went to Harvard and, got to sit next to Dr. West and was really powerful. And he talked about Martin Luther King's speech, where Martin Luther King was quoting Nietzsche. And Martin Luther King, to paraphrase, said something like, love without power is sentimental. And I think this, we think about compassion and kindness and, stillness. It's not sentimental. It really gives you the power to go out and work in the world. And in my way of seeing things, is the right has been less afraid of power than the left. And I think Michael shared that too. But the right's power is the other half of Nietzsche and Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote of power without love is, abusive and corrosive. So as people on the left, and, I will tell you, I was like a Marxist in college because I had a study and read Marx, and you have to embrace that power, and it's really quite a path to do it with love, and that was the path Michael went on.
I'm so struck by that too, just thinking about some of the work that we had been doing. One of the commentaries that I highlighted over the weekend when I was on Anna Kasparian and Nando's show was one that we had written together, about the difference between sympathy and solidarity. And, it was sort of recognizing where sympathy is a really important, experience and feeling, and that's how it opens up a lot of people's minds. But having solidarity with people, actually preparing yourself to be in the struggle with somebody who is not you, is that next level. And Michael was really good at being able to give that criticism without doing it in a way that was, pushing those people away. It's actually saying hey, you're sympathetic to these people in these struggles. Let's take that energy into actual productive change in folks' lives.
I also think it's important to say that that wasn't always the case, and that was something he grew and figured out. It's not a quality you're either born with, being able to do that or not. Michael used to have a lot more rage and judgment towards the individual. Where he was now, even a couple of years ago, it was not like that. So I think another thing that is important when we talk about all this stuff is I think especially when someone passes, it's so easy to sort of start to get very one-dimensional about how they were so enlightened. But Michael really put the work in, and he was really, really going deep into himself and deep into the work that came before him to find this, and he wrestled with it. He had hard times with individuals, but he was really wrestling to find that truth.
And for people who are missing him, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to tell people to become that intellectual. I mean, he really had an unusual brain in terms of the depth and breadth and his memory and how he could tie things together. But in terms of capacity to meet the world with resilience and to be intellectually and emotionally honest, those paths of stillness and listening, coupled with a kind of ruthless self-investigation and facing internal horrors and internal flaws, is something that I felt like would be good for his listeners to know, that that's available to everyone.
Yes.
That wasn't special to him.
That's not
And he chose the path. Not everyone chooses the path.
Exactly. I really appreciate you coming here and joining us.
Yeah, I really wanted to.
I'm glad you did, Mom. You look beautiful.
Oh, good. I'm glad. All right, cool. Well, I will go off screen then when you're ready to push me off screen, and I'll watch.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you again, Donna.
Yeah, good to see you. Bye-bye.
All right.
That's so right, though. She was so on point.
Michael gets the intellect from my mom and the humor and, the other stuff from my dad. So now hopefully he lives up to that.
Well, speaking of Glenn, are we ready for him?
Were you
Yeah.
David? Okay.
Yeah, we're ready.
I think he's downstairs in the hotel in a random conference room.
Here we go.
Speak. But we'll change the name.
Yep, got it.
He's on my boyfriend's computer. For anyone who's mystified.
I mean, it's a lot. I was trying to Zoom earlier, and I still don't have it completely down yet.
Let's just be honest. It's not the best. I feel like.
Hey, actually, we're looking into replacing it for TMBS, so
Yeah. Have no fear.
let's see. So it looks like we got the mic connection.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it looks like Sean is masked up.
Hey.
Thank you, Sean. Stay COVID safe. We've been doing it this whole time. Hey, Dad.
Hey, Alicia. Hey, honored to see you, Matt and David. I love meeting you both. And I just wanted to say that your spirit and inquiry and caring, I always felt Michael was so well cared for and loved by you guys. So you're in my heart and in my family. And so good seeing you both. Of course, what Alicia said, I thought things were highlighting. As an example, the new president of Brazil, not Lula, I felt that one of the things with Michael, he had an ability to be very curious and inquire right in the moment. Mm-hmm. So as an example, when even though he couldn't stand the new president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, I felt that he also was very caring, and if you will, and I think this is an aspect of his spirituality, I really felt it's sort of like loving the person behind the actions. Like as much as he felt that this man was a destructive force, I did feel he was very caring. I want to pause and just say that just
to hold on. Are you trying to say that he understood the things that led to people voting for him or led him to feel that way? Is that what you're trying to say? Like he was kind of, it wasn't just like this one individual's a fascist. He was kind of like looking. I'm just trying to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is, and thanks for asking. I think what I'm just saying that Michael, I think, was deepening around. Like he could have easily hated, like there was an aspect he could have really hated this person because of what he did. And I just felt there was a softening in the way he was. It's an example. Thich Nhat Hanh says, before you criticize Hitler, be aware of the Hitler that's in you. Like what we bring to our awareness is how we communicate something has ripples. And I felt that Michael's, in other words, when you discuss something and you see someone that represents something, in Christian mysticism, they talk about the appearance of something. And you got to realize there's something beyond just the appearance. And I thought Michael was making a conscious practice.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that Cornell West said. Yeah. Which is that he recognized that when he called Donald Trump a gangster, and he's like, and I know gangster because I got to have a little gangster in me.
Sure.
Yes, that kind of recognition that he was able to bring, I think.
And you understood Bolsonaro was like a bozo, like true believer kind of type, almost like, yeah.
Totally. And Michael's favorite thing were gangster movies and The Sopranos. Like there was something about the like scrappy hustle of like having to like make something of your life in this really brutal world that I think he did see that it's not just like an isolated bad people bubble.
Leading up to the Cornell West connection was a very heartful period with Michael. His heart of enthusiasm and depth of appreciation for Cornell West. He actually met Cornell West's daughter. She came to him after the lecture, and she said, Dad, this beautiful woman came up to me, and then it clicked that this was Cornell West's daughter. And when Cornell West called him to book the interview, he had called me, and I just felt so good in my heart. I actually wrote Michael a letter about that because I had listened to many, many conversations with Cornell West, and of course I'm totally biased here. I thought what he did with Cornell West was so deep and spirited, and really, it was almost like I felt another whole level of concert came out, and I felt Michael's conscious love and appreciation for how to bring all these dimensions together. You know, Cornell West talked about being a blues singer. He talked about comedy and how to bring this all together. You can't just be so rigid and tight and transform people. Mm-hmm. I want to say that the people who are just so loving, I have felt your heart. Today I have felt a symphony with Michael. It's been so strong. I've been seeing him from age 4. We were in this area recently. We had lunch together, and I just want to say, Alicia said it really well. It's just been one of the most disastrous, overwhelming things I've ever experienced. But I say your love, Matt and Dave, the people around me have made such a world of difference, and I so love and appreciate you guys. And my vision, yes, to have Michael's work move on, to have you guys inquire and practice together. And I think Michael would say this, don't arrive at a conclusion or an assumption. Keep inquiring, keep being alive, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing about Michael. When I saw him read his first book on Castro, big book, I could see he's so spirited. Mm-hmm. You know, he wouldn't just rest in something. He would say things to me that make me wonder. Michael's life is full of wonder and inquiry and curiosity and incredible robust humor. He's a master at making fun of me, by the way.
Oh, tons of fun.
Tons of fun.
That was
one of my nicknames.
Whenever Glenn was in a bad mood, we get, tons of fun is here.
Yeah.
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 We'll do the impersonation later.
It's so true. And like, it was always fun because you could usually know what Michael was reading at the time because he would tell you almost immediately, and he would be talking about it constantly on the show and in private.
Influences his personality immediately, yeah. And whenever you'd recommend a book that he would take up, like Brief History of Seven Killings, I remember when I recommended that to him.
Right. That's how I got to me then. Thank you.
Oh, really? Yeah. And we'd talk about it all the time. Like, I'm like, I should have read it deeper before I got Michael to it so I'd have more to say.
I practically thought he wrote the book. He took such ownership of that one. I had no idea that you recommended it.
I want to ask you guys. My experience was that when Michael told me about a movie, it was often much better than the movie. His ability to communicate a movie to me, like he told me about Denzel's movie, where he plays the kind of underground. He was a force for good in the community, The Equalizer, and I was so excited to see the movie because Michael had told me about it, but he would often he would light up the room, and he early on I thought of him as the miracle of Michael. He just emanated. He challenged in the most deep way. He made me re-examine things, and as I said the other day at the memorial, his hug, no matter what had happened or what we've been through, his hug, no other hug like that. It was so deep and so wondrous. And I kind of feel that hug has touched a lot of people in its own, for many expressions. Many, many expressions.
Absolutely. The messages we've gotten, that's definitely been the case, that he's found other ways to reach out to people too. It's beautiful.
One last thing I'm just going to ask Dave before my dad hops off. Why did Michael, at such a young age, what inspired him to wear a suit and tie? Starting at age like 3 or 4, he would wear a suit. What turned him on to that?
He was known as Tie Guy.
As what guy?
he was known as Tie Guy.
That's what he wanted to call. Oh,
Yeah.
he wore ties. Got
Yeah,
it.
he would wear ties and suits. Matter of fact, he would sleep next to me in a suit. He didn't want to take the suit off. Um, and there was an eye doctor in town. People would bring him ties. Like people would bring him ties, the merchants. And it was like every phase with Michael was a full phase. Like that was when he was Tie Guy, when he was in his suit. It was almost like he was hosting his own talk show. He just was so alive to it. Like when he was into cars and someone had a broken car or something, he would just find it so fascinating. You know, he had a very unusual sense of both a vivid imagination and just sort of he was intellectually very attuned. Like when he would discuss things, he would discuss them in a way that, like I love discussing in talks with Michael. There was people we would watch together. His feedback on those people, Warren Earhart, there was different people who really had brought transformation into the world.
Yeah.
Trungpa, spiritual materialism, Don't Know, if there was another Zen book. But he found these practices and he would weave them in with the political practices. Like how do you actually become aware yourself so you're not overrun by anger and you become a destructive force?
Yeah.
So on the last show, I think it was a week ago, you guys could correct me, he did a show kind of acknowledging the work of Ken Wilber when he talked about being integral. So being integral is all these different quadrants, areas of our lives. How do you bring them together? So as an example, the relationship quadrant, how is that for you? You know, or how's the quadrant with your politics?
Right.
And his thing was bringing those together.
So beautiful.
So beautiful.
We love you, Dad. We have
I
a lot
love
of
you a
guests we
lot.
have to
Hey,
get
I love
to.
you guys, and I love all the
I'll
people.
try and find some pictures of tie-dye and put them online.
Okay.
Love
you. Love you. Love the listeners too. Thank you guys.
Love you, Glenn.
Love you a lot. Love you.
All right.
Sorry, I just had to ask about tie guy.
Oh no, that's I didn't know that was had that history.
Yeah, I didn't know we were gonna go back into it all, but it was great. So really quickly, is this okay?
Yeah.
So you know, we as a team, I guess, like it's become very clear in the last week that the impact Michael was having on the world was even bigger than I think he knew or any of us knew. And he was bringing a lot of different people together, both across, our country, but also globally, global impact. And we want to keep this work going, and we feel like we're all kind of gathered at the same mountain, forgive the cheesy metaphor, but this is where we're all together. So we want to, keep this community alive. We want to keep growing our Patreon members. We'd love to have new people join. And it's going to be a work in progress. And there's no replacing Michael Brooks. That's unfortunately, Michael is gone. But what he's left behind is a lot of blueprints and clues as to what was coming. And we're going to be working really hard, us and a larger team around us, to do his future work justice and continue the vision and the mission. So please join us and encourage other people to join us. This work is immediate, and it's going to impact us kind of as long as humans are around. We're at a fork in the roads of our existence.
Yeah, one of the more I guess selfishly, one of the things that was most comforting for me is the guests that we frequently had here, and how much it hurt them that they weren't going to be able to talk to Michael anymore about this sort of stuff. And we want to make sure we maintain a space for all those sorts of conversations going forward. So yeah, and thanks to everyone who's sending in super chats. Very sweet of you. Like I have to start saying that stuff now because Michael's not here too. He was so good at that. But anyway. Yeah, like Patreon is still up. We're gonna, we're looking at other platforms to expand stuff. We're gonna take a little break after this show, I think, to maybe decompress a little bit, because this last week's been, one of the most momentous in my life, and I imagine it's for both of you. I know it is. But we're gonna, reform and figure out how best, because I think we all felt it after the initial shock that there's a bit of motivation there to try to keep this project alive for Michael. So
I think so too, and I want people to know, as we mentioned, going forward without Michael is going to be very difficult, and in some aspects impossible. We can't ever, find a voice to replace that. But in Michael's spirit, and we were spending so much time over the past few weeks gaming out the future and really building and coming up with what the next phase of TMBS. We really were planning a massive relaunch and a very ambitious new program. And my intention, I know it's shared across the board here, is that we're going to come out very strong. Yeah, we'll make some mistakes and things like that, but the intention is to come out and putting out the quality of work that we spent the past few years putting out, and continuing to build the shows and the people who we have in our family and are participating in these conversations, and also making sure we're still highlighting all those voices that you're really not getting many other places. So thank you so much to everyone supporting us through the YouTube channel and on patreon.com/TMBS. It's really meant so much to see the community really rally around us, and I can't say to you how humble it makes me, and also how optimistic and ambitious I'm feeling at the same time, trying to handle that Michael spirit. And, on that note, I think we have a really incredible group of guests here. Do we have our first one?
Here's Ben Burgess.
By Comrade Ben, who's been such a big part of the show throughout the years. You all know him from the Debunk segments. Michael and him have co-written works together. He's a good friend and comrade, Mr. Ben Burgess.
Hey, brother.
It's good to see you, Ben.
Alicia, it's nice to meet you.
It's really nice to meet you. I was listening to you on Anna's show, and it just made me so happy that you would sleep over and wake up and write with Michael. It gave me, I don't know, I just felt like, oh, good. Ben was there. They had that time.
Yeah. When you were talking earlier about how much you loved gangster movies, and the sort of maybe symbolic role that played in his perpetual scrappy hustle. That's I was thinking about being over at his and his girlfriend's apartment, and just watching Donnie Brasco on Netflix one night, and having this conversation about a scene in the movie where one of the gangsters is trying to get another one to betray a third one. It doesn't matter, but he sort of sets it up by saying, "Oh, I never want to like bash this other guy," and we were just like joking about how this is like every like shitty Salon and Slate article that does like the paragraph where they set up
100%.
all the obvious objections to whatever they're saying. Like
Michael.
The structure of that joke was so Michael-ish.
It's so brilliant. I know. I have to like warm up to a few, but he really gave me some good stuff on Sunday night before he passed. And this is probably way too personal to share with the internet, but when I collected his belongings from the hospital, and I took them back to my hotel room, and we just watched Goodfellas, and I poured him a little whiskey, which by him I mean a bag of his clothes, who I've been talking to. And it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt right. He loved those movies.
I need to watch Narcos, speaking of which.
Narcos season 1. But then, he got excited about the Cali Cartel as well. So it's all good.
Yeah, he was really trying to build that hustler socialism.
Yeah.
He wanted to be cool. He wanted to be chic. He liked the pizzazz.
That's one thing I think the amount of people that said he was really cool, I think he would, I think a lot of people knew he was funny. I think people thought he was smart, but I think like the coolness, I think he would appreciate that people thought he was so cool.
No question.
Well, Ben, this is sort of like, your space to reflect, as, especially on the work. If there's anything that you wanted to hit on, remembering about Michael, we'd really appreciate that right now.
Yeah, I think from going back to the time, last summer when, I was reading over drafts of his book, and we were talking about that a lot, and I think the part of the book that was most important to him, for anybody who's read it, was the very last chapter, where he talks about cosmopolitan socialism, by which he meant both this kind of deep internationalism that many people have commented on, that was incredibly important to him, I can't imagine how much it would have meant to him to know that he would get a memorial tweet from Lula.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. But also this way of thinking about culture that, like this kind of way of sort of steering between the rock of the Western chauvinism and bigotry of the right, and the way that the left can often sort of be toxic and kind of try to micromanage, cultural expression, and which he hated more than anybody, I know, but so much, and just instead, like take that kind of metaphor, cosmopolitanism literally, that, just sort of having people interact and culturally intermingle and cross-pollinate in the way that people do when they're put together, in cities, that kind of vision, that way of, being in the world, was really important to him. And thought about it a lot, especially since on the, the night before he died, I'd thought about calling him to try to nail down a writing session, because one of the articles that we were supposed to work on, he'd like the last time he texted me about it was like a week and a half before, but I was kind of trying to, give him a little bit of space because he was having a rough time, with quarantine. And but one of the articles we were supposed to work on was this thing about cosmopolitan socialism, and and I wanted to, I wanted to get, wanted to try to nail down a time to work on that. But then I thought, there's no rush. It's late, right? We'll get on this tomorrow. But anyway, I guess I'd just say, more generally, I've spent a lot of time thinking in the last week about, the impact that he had on me, and just the way that he was, that scrappy hustle that you're talking about, that like he had this way of being very, unconflicted about sort of promoting, his work and, and his contributions, and not having some of the neurotic hangups, that many of us on the left often have about that. He'd even kind of say like, that's, that's something, like having this like weird hang-ups about that, right? Maybe that's for rich kids, that's,
I think he just knew he was right. Not that he didn't learn, but like I think a lot of what made him crazy was other people just not getting it. Like I think the reason he responded to Lula so much was he just saw like, oh, this is what I see, and this guy's taking action. Like our last phone conversation, we were kind of butting heads. We definitely would butt heads about seeing. We talked about real stuff. It wasn't just, chit chat. And we kind of were arguing about one thing. And then I said to him, we kind of came to like a standstill, and he goes, well, do you want me to explain it to you or not? And I go, and I was so close just being like, fuck you, or, whatever, hang up, call him back in the morning. We'd have our things. And then I kind of just laughed because, as annoying as it was like so annoying because I want to be right so badly about something. And then we'd like talk for another 20 minutes. I'd be like, ugh. And, so then I go, okay, Michael, explain it to me. And he starts explaining it. And then after like 15 minutes, I go, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't think anyone else gets it the way you do. And I don't think you can assume the level of like acceptance is that way, but you're right.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a lot of confidence there, even though he was constantly learning. And honestly, I think he was one of the most intellectually curious people I've ever known. Like David was talking earlier about how you could always tell what he was reading, but even the stuff that wasn't like the main book that he was like talking about all the time, right? I do, when I'd be at his apartment and I'd see, which, I was just thinking, when when your dad said that thing about how when he was reading his first book about Fidel Castro, and I was trying to imagine my dad saying that about me, that's like, I remember when Dad was reading his first book about Fidel, but but of course, because he had that picture from when Fidel was in New York to talk to the UN in there. But I'd always look at all the sort of half-finished books, that he'd have around, and it was just, when he started having somebody like Harvey Kay or Richard Wolff or Cornel West on, like he'd get like become interested in somebody like this, and he'd just go back and try to read everything they'd written, and he was constantly trying to synthesize everything he was learning from that, and he was so like it was striking when he didn't try to do this kind of like dialectical synthesis of what he'd learned from different perspectives. What he did occasionally, like one of the last episodes, before he passed, he was talking about Adolf Reed, and like it was like really striking because it was so out of character. He was just like, yeah, I generally try to do this synthesis thing, but Adolf's just right. It was so it was so striking, but it really speaks to that confidence, and also I think he had a sense, when he did have that, that like constant effort to put his work out there, which I hope has rubbed off on me a little bit in the last couple of years, being able to get to know him so well, it's like part of what made it different from like, petty careerism or anything like that, was that it was also integrated together, that like it was he was trying to put his stuff out there and find new ways and new audiences, and this new relaunch of the show he was talking about. There were at least like 3 ideas for new books that I heard about. Last year was Life. There was a second Jacobin show coming. That like it was all
brutal to think about.
We'll be playing a pitch for like a mini documentary on Lava Jato that he was involved with next time on the show whenever we get back.
Yeah,
a lot of pans in the fryer or whatever that expression.
Yeah, totally right. And it was all integrated, obviously, with this political project he was very dedicated to. That and very for being this person who was constantly reading and constantly thinking. It was also a very not like abstract and intellectual political project. It was a visceral one, that tried to have a world where nobody's insecure in their housing, their healthcare, that everybody has access to decent food.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Absolutely.
And Ben, I hope you can continue to, come on the show and educate me and our listeners on just everything. And also, I really hope you write that article that you guys were working on. And I don't know.
I'll for sure. As long as this project continues in any form, I'm always here for it.
Ben's part of the integral theory. Like Michael used to crap on logic, but we did bring a logic guy specifically to cover a bass. So
you have your own intro song. You're there forever.
Well, and it's funny too, right? Because I was like earlier this week, Bhaskar texted me with that clip from when we were both on together. And we were kind of like bantering about astrology, and Michael said, "Don't bring that nerd shit on my show." But as much like joking around as he did about that, that debug segment, that was 100% his idea. I had no.
A perfect segue there is that Michael was a Leo, and he was very proud to share his Leo birthday with Fidel Castro. So that kind of encapsulates all the sides of Michael in that.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, and I love you, comrade. And everyone, please check out his piece in the Jack and Remember Michael. It's very sweet.
And the debunk will live on.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely,
for sure.
All right, that's me.
Care, Ben. Oh, I love Ben. He's the man. Ben also will go through your bookshelf if he ever goes to your house. That's one thing.
That's a good quality.
Here comes Brianna.
Oh, wonderful.
Let's see. Here we go.
Just wait 1 second for her video to come on. I mean, so I think Bree, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Bree. Everyone, this is Brianna Joy Gray, TMBS crew, as Michael was always proud to say, an old friend of the show and somebody who's gone on to do some really amazing things. I'm so happy to see your face. Thank you for coming on today.
Of course, I wouldn't miss it for anything.
Hey, Bree.
Hey, Matt.
I have to duck so you're not covered by a watermark, but just wanted to say hi.
Oh, it's good to see. It's good to see that face and that stash. Everyone's living their best COVID life.
Very much so.
Well, Brianna, we wanted to give you a little bit of time to come on here and remember our friend Michael and his work, but just anything that you have. I know you guys were such good friends and known each other for a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really fortunate to have become a part of the show so early. I mean, I've been reflecting on this a lot, and you really have to understand that I was coming to the Michael Brooks show from nothing, right? I had literally published my first 2 articles in Current Affairs. They were the second and third things I had ever written in my life. And the identity politics one kind of took off. I don't know which of you or Michael saw it and found it, but I don't know how much I would have been introduced to the broader world of left media. I don't know how much currency I would have had beyond that article. I don't know how much confidence I would have had to continue to pursue writing and to say yes to other kinds of interviews if you all hadn't reached out and given me that platform. And I was incredibly intimidated to come on the show because Michael was so brilliant and so informed and did the work of being granularly knowledgeable about things that I confess I often am sort of lazy about. And I really relied on him for that kind of political education. And once I became hip to the show, listening to it constantly, because it felt as though it was one of the few places where I was actively growing with every listen. Every show, every podcast, I don't listen to for that reason. Sometimes I listen because I want catharsis. Sometimes I listen because I just want to, hear my own beliefs parroted back to me and not necessarily be challenged. I mean, it is what it is. It's hard. You're out here constantly being gaslit by the world, and sometimes that's what you need. But the Michael Brooks show is so smart, and also, almost more importantly, I think, so compassionate and humanistic. And it managed to be that way without seeming kind of preachy or like squishy or like crunchy or whatever. And that's a really difficult balancing act to pull off, to make it seem like it can be cool and interesting and fun, to also be good and just and humane. And to have those sentiments grounded in history and theory and also almost a kind of a spirituality that also seemed incredibly pragmatic and focused on practice and real life effects. And the loss is obviously human first and foremost. But I remember I had this, kind of secondary wave of that felt very familiar, because I remember feeling it after Bernie had his heart attack, which was, oh my gosh, we're losing this human being that we all love and we value. And also, what does this mean for our movement? Who possibly fills that same sort of role? Where do we go from here? Who can carry the mantle? Who's prepared, perfectly oriented and perfectly positioned to be able to do this kind of work? And that's really tough. That's really hard. It's a real double kind of a whammy. So I'm really glad that you guys are all doing this, and I'm so glad that y'all are still here with the infrastructure to push this project forward and continue that way.
Well, it's just something that I wanted to mention too, is like, I've been thinking a lot about, one, obviously the loss, but two, how incredible it is, like how instrumental Michael was in a lot of people's lives. Ben was just talking about, doing all this work with Michael coming on the show. And like, Michael was really a wonderful person at like seeing, talent and intelligent and wonderful people and trying to encourage everybody to continue to grow. That like right now I'm sitting in this moment and I'm just like, oh God, how can we, go on without Michael? And I'm realizing that Michael's been doing the work to prepare it. You know, he's been doing the work to like grow all these other people so that it wasn't always just going to be him. He really was trying to build everybody up. And, you know, a lot of people, as you know, in this kind of community, especially the media scene, that is not their perspective at all. They see anybody grow and they try to tear them down, right? Because Michael never really had that perspective. And it's something I'm really proud of being a part of and working and learning from him on that level.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I mean, I thought of him as someone to always ask for advice, because I think I associated so much of my kind of personal journey through the left media world with him, and the show was a kind of a constant touchstone throughout. You know, my ex-boyfriend texted me saying, "Oh my gosh, like I remember when you first went on after your first writing, and how integral that was to those early days, and how excited and nervous you were." And you know, it's really true. And I remember as I was, you know, things happened really quickly for my personal political trajectory. And I remember when Brittany reached out about coming onto the campaign, the first person I wanted to ask about it was Michael, because, you know, I knew that he understood my concerns. He knew that I was balancing this idea of being kind of an impartial journalist and knowing how few lefty journalists there are, and in particularly the way that identity was bound to be weaponized in the campaign, and kind of the strategic value of having an independent Black journalist. You know, is that worth giving up to go internally? And, you know, I knew that there were a few other people who kind of knew where I was coming from, who could really assess that with me, both pragmatically and also who had kind of the grace not to feel some kind of way. Because I personally, I will admit, I was a little embarrassed to be coming to him as someone who I was looking up to, and I knew had, you know, such a broader understanding of a lot of things than I did, and saying, "Hey, I've been presented with this opportunity." I was a little sheepish about it, but he was so graceful about it and so helpful.
He was so happy for you.
Yeah.
I felt it, and what I'm feeling now is, you know, obviously this is another period of transition for everyone in the left, but obviously professionally for me as well. And I was anticipating being able to kind of vet my possibilities, vet my choices with Michael, and it's a really strange place to be in.
I know. Well, just really briefly before we let you go, I hope you remember like those first few shows you came on, that it wasn't too intimidating. We tried to make it fun, get everyone a little bit drunk before they went on stage.
You guys were a blast. I mean, I remember when I went to work for the campaign, my first thought was, okay, I'm going to take down my personal podcast because Brittany doesn't need that. Although I'm proud of every word said, like he just doesn't need the media cycle. And then I was like, gosh, what am I going to do about all those TMBS? What exactly did I say? Was that a post game that I said that?
Yeah, we clip up the post games, which is a problem sometimes. You clip that up for
they're great. Whatever, I'm glad they're up there. We had a lot of fun.
Well, Brianna, thank you so much for coming on. I hope to be able to talk to you again soon sometime. And thank you for all the wonderful work that you've been doing.
Of course. You guys are doing something really special, and I appreciate you all.
Can't wait till post-pandemic to meet in person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye, Brie. All right. Here's Nando.
Oh, nice. Those were so much fun, especially those early shows, man. We had a lot of beer in the studio.
We did a lot of beer. Hey, Nando. Nando, we were just talking about how much beer we had in the studio of the early TMBS shows. Was beer a part of Woke Bros, or was he? Because he kind of moved away from that, I think. Yeah.
We usually tape those like a little earlier, I think, and so not as much beer, but the true heads know that the real good episodes were the ones where you guys were just hammered. That's it. It really got good.
Nando, thanks so much, for coming and joining us. You know, you've been such a good friend to us, and we've had so many good memories, outside, but also with the show. We've been remembering a lot, especially over this last week, as we try to remember. Michael also trying to remember all the really fun times. I have to say the LA show that we all did together is probably one of the more fun nights of my life.
Oh man, yeah.
That was incredible. Well, Big Waz got absolutely plastered, and I'm surprised we didn't get canceled from something he said that night. And then I remember going out after with you guys, and Griscom. First of all, you're like, I was like shocked at how young you were. I was like, man, these kids so goddamn smart. You know, I was such a shithead when I was 22 years old or whatever. But then you're like this like incredible soccer star. And then I got incredibly jealous all over again because like no one knows this about Griscom, but Griscom is like an elite athlete over
Professional, semi-pro, right? Or what was the story, Dave?
Yeah, I played some pretty serious soccer back in the day, but it's all behind me. I gave up soccer for beer and cigarettes.
Yeah. But he was a goalkeeper, so it wasn't all behind him back then. So.
Hey. But yeah, no, that LA night was amazing. I mean, I remember like when Mike was like, "Hey, you want to do my LA show?" I mean, I had no concept of how big your audience was or anything like that. And when he asked me, I have to admit, I was like, "Ooh, is this gonna be like one of those like really embarrassing things where like we show up and there's 14 people, half of them
that is such
are
a
like
Michael response, like, ooh, it's gonna be like not cool."
Yeah, and I was like, but I was thinking that the whole time. I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll support," you know. And I was like, oh, "Shit, is this gonna be like super embarrassing? It's gonna be 12 people." And I show up a couple hours early, you know, because he asked me to, "Hey, you show up early and we can do some warm up. We can go through the show." And I was like, "Yeah." And there was a line around the block to get in. And I was like, "Am I at the right venue? This is all these people came to see Mike." And it was like when we walked up and people were like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." I was like, man, and you could tell like he was like a little freaked out, but also like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Was that the second live show? It was New York, and then LA was the second live show?
LA was the first one we traveled for, yeah.
That was when it hit me how big it was getting, because I've been repeating myself. I've interpersonally told you guys these stories, but I remember a couple of people had driven up from Tijuana, and I found that out very early in the evening. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, there were all these people that, you know, want to talk to him and take pictures. There was just like such a thing. I was like, oh my God, this is getting really big. And then there were not one but two people that told me they had flown from New York to see the second live show. And one of them was like, oh, it worked out with my work. And I was kind of like, oh, cool. Like, you know, you're bi-coastal. Do you work in California? And he was like, no, I just get 2 days off a year. So I was able to come to the LA show. And that was kind of my like, oh, wow. Like, this is really impacting people. That was kind of the... And it was very fun and drunk.
And he was so amazing too at those shows, like, you know, because all those, you'd come and meet people before and then after the show. And, you know, Matt and I would sort of, you know, try to meet people, but we were a little sheepish and a little nervous. And Michael would do what he called, you know, turning on his Bill Clinton. And he would introduce himself to
lead handing, you know, backslapping. Yeah.
Backslapping, yeah.
That was one of the first impersonations was Bill.
Yeah, that's true. That's Bhaskar Sunkara's favorite. But yeah. No, I remember thinking at the time and talking about it with Mike afterwards, you know, because I come from the world of television production and I, you know, produced several shows and stuff for cable. And I was like, you know, the way you feed off of and control the crowd energy, you need to eventually consider doing your show with a live audience like every week. You know, the way they do it, absolutely. The way they do it at like the Tonight Show or Bill Maher or whatever, like they have the audience in there because it creates a different vibe. It creates a different vibe both for the host, but also for the viewer watching it on TV, because there's just a different kind of energy there. And Mike was absolutely in his element with the crowd kind of doing thing and him like interacting with the crowd. And, you know, so I was like, man, if you could do that, pull that off somehow, even if it's a small audience, like you guys would just have been.
Yeah. I mean,
he was not going to suck.
Yeah. he was always, I mean, he was so good with people. And yeah, it was beautiful. You know, before, you know, we let you go, you know, I just want to give you a second if there's anything else you want to remember about Michael, because he was such a good friend to you too, and you all did so many amazing other things as well together.
Yeah, I mean, in general, just the quickness and genuineness of his friendship was something that you just don't see very often. I mean, we're a little older, you know, I'm in my mid 30s. You know, at this point, you kind of have your friends. You know, there's no new friends. Come on, you know. And but he, you know, he was just like very genuine and very, very quickly was very good at sparking up a friendship. And that, I'm not the only one who's saying that. I think this is true of like Ben Burgess and a million other people that came into his life through this kind of strange world of left media. And he was always very good at looking for ways to work together, connecting people. I mean, I remember when he was like, "Hey, you want to maybe do a monthly Sopranos show for the patrons of TMBS?" And I'm like, "Yes, fuck yeah!" That sounds like the best thing ever. Like after, I do my stupid little Entourage show, which I pitched to him. He was the first person I ever talked to about it. I was like, I have this like stupid idea. It's the stupidest idea ever. No one's gonna like it, but I kind of want to do it. And he was like, "Dude, that's a great idea. You should do it." I remember I was at dinner with him in LA when I told him about it. So just a very genuine desire for people around him to be their best selves, and doing it in like a non-cheesy way, like not like in a non-annoying way, like because he's cool. Like everyone talks, he's cool. He's not annoying or cheesy. So yeah, I mean that's just what I'll remember. I mean, outside of like, again, asking about every complex political question that I just don't have the capacity to work out on my own. I usually asked him, like, what am I supposed to think about this? And he would usually be like very cool about it. I'm thinking like this and that. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, I'll miss him dearly. But I'm glad to see you guys, continuing doing the thing. You Griscom especially, you're so young. I mean, I don't know how old super producer Matt Lek is, but I just know you're come on, you're old.
How David are you? How old are you, David?
I'm 27.
27, a child.
19. I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, a child.
Is it legal we drank together? Like, did I get died by David alcohol?
So yeah, so just continue doing it, man, and you guys continue doing this, and I'll be watching for sure.
I love you so much, Nando.
Yeah, thanks so much, brother.
Love you, Nando.
Love you, man. Oh man, I'm just like remembering that was such a great night, and
it was that's the only time I've ever been to LA, and like it's such a rock star memory for LA. Honestly, that show was it was a wild show. Honestly, like there was some very rambunctious. Well, not even just Waz. Like Waz, I mean Waz is part of the entertainment and part of the talent, but I mean there's some people that were not part of the talent that were getting a little bit.
I mean, people brought some treats.
Yeah,
I remember that too. Well, people brought treats to Chicago too, but that's for another time.
Another format.
Are you all set up, Waz?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you fine. We cannot see you yet, though.
Oh, I didn't realize we were doing on camera. Sorry.
That's cool. You can do it without camera if you don't. Whatever's. Cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be better that way.
Yeah, cool. No problem, man. Well,
because I'm actually in the car.
Oh, man. Good. Thanks so much for doing this, man. I know it's not an easy time.
Of course. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Obviously, salute to Matt and Dave. All the work that you guys did with Mike over the years was just incredible. You guys got to spend more time with him than anybody. So, I know the loss has felt deeply for you guys, and it was beautiful to connect with you guys as well as Leisha and Mike's mom, Donna. And just, his dad, just meeting the people that were in Mike's life before I got to know him was really cool. It really moved me. And as I said on Sunday, it actually made me feel closer to Mike, knowing where he's from, how he came up. It's really cool and it's really heartening. But, as I've been thinking about it for the last 8 days, I guess it is now, how we go about moving forward and doing our best to carry on the things that Mike felt were important. I think the mission is clear. I think advocating for the issues that, we already care about, but doing so steadfastly. I know Nando was on, and I love what Nando had to say about it. Not to repeat any of his points, but he talked about being dejected after Bernie lost the nomination. And it was Mike who told him, like, hey, man, that's part of it. We're going to lose sometimes, but we got to, the point is we got to keep fighting. And I've been really thinking about that for the last 8 days. I think that's just important. Not even to speak in vagaries, but it's just about using whatever we got, collectively as individuals, whatever we're fortunate enough to have in attention or money or whatever, and putting that in service of, a bigger cause than us, which is the cause of poor and working people, and the never-ending fight to achieve some sort of equanimity out here, to get our overlords to give some of this stuff back that rightfully belongs to us.
Yep.
And just keeping that fight going, and that's basically where I've been at, especially coming off of the weekend, which the services were beautiful. Yeah. I know Alicia had a big hand in planning that and moving all of those parts together. I was deeply moved by the entire experience of being in community with everybody, and just being in that space, both, like physically, but spiritually, the space that we were in this past weekend. So I'm very grateful for that, for Mike's send-off. It was beautiful. And I told the people that of the property, that Sunday is not a day that I will soon forget. It was a very incredible experience. So, I don't know what else to say besides that.
Happy you guys were all there. That meant the world to me. I also just want to say one thing was, a lot of people have reached out to me also saying, like, Michael's work was making them realize they need to stand with their working class brothers and sisters. It wasn't just, he was getting through to both sides of this, insanity. And people who I think are like, don't realize that that's who they should be standing with, and that's the side of the team they are, and they've been manipulated into thinking they need to identify with, the ruling class and the people of the power. And I've just been so touched by that part of what's been coming back to me from the messages.
Yeah, I think, I think that's a part of, honestly, a part of my own ideology or way of thinking about things that's been, and this is not, I'm not putting on airs here. Like, this is, I can directly attribute it to Mike, right? It's about, yes, we need to address these issues of inequality when it comes to, the oppression of Black people, of gay and trans people, of brown people, of all these types of people. But we need to never, ever, ever decouple it from the class question. That's just, it's fundamental to how I think about things now. And I think, again, like, it's an easy way to divide us when we do decouple it from the class question, right? When you can't say, you know what? Fuck you if you're poor and you're white. I'm Black. The shit sucks. Where you get to, where that's a way where you get to, you don't have to acknowledge anybody else's suffering, right? And again, I can say this as a Black person. It's not to say I'm like, oh, all suffering is the same suffering. Of course not. That's ridiculous, but the bottom line is, yes, proportionally, Black people have been affected by, this struggle, more than anybody else in this country because of the legacy and the history of this country. That's just a fact. There's no two ways about it. But those same laws, those same tactics, the divisive nature of the ruling class has done the work of oppressing non-Black people too. And we need to always make sure that everybody understands this. Yes, the cause of Black people is a special one here because of all the things that we already know: slavery, Jim Crow, the dissolution of the Reconstruction effort, mass incarceration. All of these things have happened in this country and absolutely contribute to, the status of, the descendants of African people here. And that's important, and we should never forget that. But, again, the class question is central to everything that we do. because again, we've made it so that you got to have a college degree to achieve even any modicum of dignity in work in this country, right? And kids are leaving college with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? We can't have a system that prioritizes something like a college degree and makes it ridiculously hard to achieve, like impossibly hard to achieve from people who had the capabilities besides the financial component, right? And we just need to always keep those issues central and understand what it's all about. Understand that it's about getting as many people to achieve what certain people want to call the American dream, as many people as possible.
Yeah, I want to say on this note, I'm sure you guys talked about it on Woke Bros, and we had similar discussions on TMBS, but on the June 4th Majority Report was a guest on a Michael Thursday. It was a good long interview, and I think one of the best I've ever heard between you two on these sorts of topics. So I would point people towards that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that, man. I mean, there's been some luminaries on the Majority Report, man. I don't know if
you're the luminary.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Oh, man. Well, Waz, thank you so much, for everything over this past week and for coming on today. I know Michael had so much love for you, and I share that.
And he had so much fun with you. He just loved hanging out with you.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's just so crazy. Like, I always felt close to Mike. I considered him a friend. I thought he was a dear person, but I had so much love and admiration for the things that he was trying to do. And I was so blown away by his talent. And I knew that we were friends, but it never dawned on me that that Mike had some outsized affinity for me, right? But talking to people is just like, nah, Mike really fucked with what you were doing. He fucked with you as a person. He fucked with your temperament, your approach to things. Like, that's very heartening, and it's very touching, man. I feel very touched by you guys saying that. Really, I really do, because it's not that I didn't consider him a dear friend of mine, but when you kind of go through your life, and the people in your life, you're rooting for them, you're cheering them on, you're clapping for their successes, and me anyway, that's how I am. And so, I never really placed myself in those things. You understand? Yeah. So it's hard for me to center myself in the things that Mike was doing. But it's really dope to hear you guys say that. Just thank you guys, and I really love you guys. I swear to God, y'all are just the most beautiful, amazing people. And being around you guys put me in the right spirit. I love y'all for that.
For sure.
I love you too, Waz.
Love you too. Hope to see you soon.
All right, later, y'all.
See you.
Bye.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, Waz is a guy who he jokes about being a communist in basketball podcasts, which is not a way for career advancement. So, yeah, Waz is the best.
Like that?
You should hear. Oh man, Waz, I remember hearing True Hoop. He's talking about some NBA labor dispute, and it's finally somebody on a basketball podcast that's willing to make jokes about being a communist and how the players exactly, yeah.
Knows what a labor contract is.
Here's Daniel Bessner.
Oh, nice. Oh, it's Daniel. Daniel was coming on the show a lot recently, but has been doing a lot of work with us for the past few years. International relations expert, fun dude. Danny, are you with us?
We got his video, but not his
video.
audio.
Daniel, how's it going?
Nope.
That's always funny when they don't see you for a second.
Yeah. Okay, now we got his mic.
My house.
Hey, guys.
I have
Hey, Daniel.
well.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey, sorry, I was just watching you talk to Waz, so I think I might have messed it up.
No.
Good. Perfect.
So happy for you to be joining us today. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time.
Yeah, of course. Anything I could do, really. It's been a rough week, a bizarre week. Still kind of in a daze, and it's kind of holed up in LA. But anything I could do to further Michael's legacy. It's happy to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, this is sort of like a good space for you to jump in right now with any stories or reflections you'd like to give to Michael. We've been talking a little bit about, other things that we did, live shows and stuff like that. So I'd love hearing about y'all's relationship and sort of what you learned from him.
No, of course. Well, I mean, I met Michael. I think I published a book, and he had agreed to interview me, and he started, talking afterward. And I just found it was just so amazing how he really took an effort more than anyone that I really knew. We were about the same age. He was a year older than me, but basically the same age. We were kind of the old hands in this, burgeoning socialist movement. And it was just so few people when you hit your mid-30s like me and Michael were, he really made an effort to be friends. As you get older, it's harder to be friends. And Michael was really one of the only people I know as an adult who, like, we would constantly text, we would call, and it was just so great to speak to someone who I thought came from like a similar background, Northeast, Jewish, or, and, huh? Ish. Jewish, yeah. And talk about all those things and have sort of a similar, conversation about internationalism. And that's what I wrote about it for Jacobin. But just to reiterate here, I think that's what made him so unique, is that he more than most people I knew, like, really centered other people, not himself, but, so much of our political discussion is focused only on Americans. But Michael was someone who really, took the histories and took the peoples of other places seriously. And he read Frantz Fanon or Angela Davis is obviously an American, but someone of a different identity group. And he read Sankara, and he read all of these people. And I was just always impressed with the breadth and depth of his knowledge. And it wasn't, I'm a professor, and I'm paid to talk about this stuff. Not well, but still paid. But Michael would always spend his extra time doing some deep readings in post-colonial theory or decolonial theory or anti-imperialist thought. And I was always just so impressed with how he was able to, bring that knowledge to bear and make it entertaining. And he and I, we always had these like little projects on the side. We were talking about expanding the illicit histories, as David, I think and we were always talking about like thinking how we could do more activisty stuff in the world. And in just the last week of his life, we had really been talking every day about sort of expanding beyond the media stuff and trying to do more things concrete. And it was just, it's just such a loss. It's hard to underemphasize, or sorry, it's hard to overemphasize what a loss it is. And it's just, I was talking to Ben earlier today. It's not only a loss in our personal lives, but it's just a void in this left, in this movement, that I don't see anyone set to fill. And but then there's also sort of the personal side of him, just hanging out. Every time we come to the city, we'd go out and we'd drink and we'd just bullshit. And he was so funny. And I loved his voices. And with me, he'd always do like his like stereotypical Jew voice. I can't even do it, but it was really funny. And, and it was just like hard. Yeah, it was just like he was just so funny, and not to canonize him as a person, he was so biting and witty and smart. But I think what brought it all together was that he was so good-hearted that he could like be to a Ben Shapiro or a Dave Rubin or whomever it may be, and it just didn't take away from the fact that he really felt who he was, a good-hearted, solid person. And I miss him terribly already, and I'm just going to miss him so much more. And I just don't see anyone taking up that internationalist mantle right now. And if anything good comes of this awful situation, it'll be to inspire us to both be more internationalists, and especially what Michael is turning toward in the last few months of his life, in which we talk about all the time, which is the need to treat each other with kindness, and to recognize that we are contributing to a common project that we won't achieve unless we do that. And I think that's a really important part of his legacy. And his style, of course.
And his what?
And his style.
Yeah.
I know, I'm noticing the Adidas hoodie. Who is your inspiration?
Yeah, an inspiration. I always found his style an inspiration. And the gold chain. I'm not that cool yet, but I can't pull that off.
You work your way up to it. Yeah, I mean, it was so much fun, having you on the show. And I remember sometimes just being so proud that we could go from, dunking on a moron like Charlie Kirk and then to, a quick illicit history on the CIA and the State Department and get really in depth. I mean, that kind of vocabulary that he had is something that I really envy and admired about him.
Yeah, and I would always tell him, I'm like, I think, in 5, 10 years, you're going to be huge. Like, you're going to, I think, really pull all of these strands together in a way that I don't think anyone was really situated to in quite the same way. And it's hard to again, and I said that again, but it's such an enormous loss. It's really terrible. And it hasn't fully hit me yet. And I just hope that we're able to build on his legacy and really push the project forward. And I mean, when he passed, I just wasn't expecting the sort of huge outcry. And it's so clear that he touched so many lives, thousands of lives, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives. And I just thank God we have this archive of all these conversations and all this excellent work that he did, that, it could be a real resource for people. And I know he would be really happy about that it's going to last. It's going to be work that lasts.
I mean, like the idea of getting illicit histories into classrooms, like that one piece alone would just be like so fucking awesome. I mean, there's like a library we have now, and it has not hit the bottomless, just complete and utter destruction, despair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's kind of terrifying.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for taking some time. I hope to talk to you again soon. Love you, brother.
Absolutely. Love you guys. Take it easy. Bye.
What's up? All right, here's Oscar.
Perfect. There we go. Hey, Daniel's the man. Yeah. And here we have
BSing with Bessner.
BSing with Bessner. We have here, good friend, comrade, founder of Jacobin, Bhaskar Sankara. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to join us today.
Of course. I'm happy to be here, and thank you to the whole TMBS family. I do feel like, I always felt this connection with you guys, but so much of it was because of the mutual trust built from Michael. He was the linchpin, and even though I didn't know everyone in his orbit that well, and many of them were acquaintances, it was if they're fine with Michael, they must be good people. You could trust them. I'm in a bind. When we were first brainstorming the Jacobin channel, whatever, first person Michael told me to call was Matt. First, it's like the constant just advocacy for friends in a way that was just great. He would talk about how much Danny had been influencing his recent work. And you could kind of hear it this last weekend's commentary that he did. You could kind of hear Danny's voice a little bit, and you could tell that he was just constantly in contact with people. He was constantly making everyone better and also making himself better in that interaction. And it was just a great convener of people. And even on these shows, I would get into work. I would get to the office sometimes like 8 a.m. or something. I then walk over to the studio. Michael was always late for things, and he was always disorganized, but somehow he'd just start panicking if he didn't think I was going to be there at 6 on the dot, even though there was no reason for me to be there that early.
I know.
But I'm just kind of walking in, David handing me, recording, so we have to be quiet, handing me a warm IPA, me figuring out how to open it, without making any noise. I just liked everything about the experience, so much so that you could just be talking with people or talking with Michael for hours on air, and then immediately after, the thing that we would want to do is maybe go out and have a beer or just keep talking. Mm-hmm. And that takes a very special person. He was building, I just hate the word building community because it's a cliche and it's meaningless and it's used constantly, but he was building a community in the best sense of the word. Exactly. And also, all right, this is the strangest thought I had, but I talked a little bit about Michael last week. I don't wanna. It's one, painful to keep saying the same things over and over again, and also because we all have met the same person, and there was only one Michael, right? And that he meant basically the same thing to all his friends. He gave them the same love. His viewers tapped into his human character. I'm sure, if when other people go, sometimes they mean different things to different people at different stages of his life. But on Sunday, when I got a chance to talk to his friends from high school or whatnot, you could see the same thread, the same personality. But the thing that came to my mind was, out of political figures, I think Michael has something in common with both two of his heroes, Tony Benn and Hugo Chavez. And this.
Totally Hugo Chavez, yeah.
Wait, in that they radicalized in power. They moved left in power. And I know in power is a weird thing to say about a broadcaster, but I really think he was at his peak, not just in terms of his ability, his command of his craft, but in terms of his reach, which was really growing exponentially. After years of struggling, of hustling, of working his ass off, including bouts of huge financial insecurity and whatever else, it was all starting to pay off. It was all going in the right direction for him. And also because of his personal charm, he was really widely liked across the left. Occasionally the past week, someone would put out a tweet or drop a tribute to Michael, which would be very nice. But I knew it would be someone that he had some mild criticisms of in a funny way. And I would think about his reply in his right-wing Mandela voice, which I can't do. But the kind of, yes, but he's still a cuck, but a right-wing Mandela voice. But it was all genuine, because he fostered those ties even with people he disagreed with. But in other words, instead of trying to be some catch-all spokesperson for the left, someone who meant all things to all people, he was in the process of really rigorously defining his politics. He wanted to call out the excesses of identitarian politics. He wanted a left focus on the labor movement. He wanted to learn from winning movements that took state power, like the ANC in South Africa, like the PK in Brazil. But he wasn't an idiot. He knew the flaws of all these different movements. But the reason why he wanted us to focus on them is because he wanted to create a winning left. So in other words, he didn't want to be the king of a subculture. He wanted to be a small part of a large, dynamic, winning, movement.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I don't know. I just can't think of another person who, at the peak of their popularity and success, if he was toning it up, not trying to just broaden his appeal in such a way that it would be the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
and it was all okay.
Oh, I was just going to say that, this past few months, obviously, losing the Bernie Sanders election, a lot of people, like Michael wanted to win. I think you hitting on that is perfect. Like he really wanted to win, and he started doing a lot of criticism over the past few months, but it was all about, we need to learn from movements that win and not just cheerlead ourselves back into obscurity. Like he was really worried that, without a national politician like Bernie Sanders, that we were just going to take small victories and be happy with that. He was really always trying to, push us forward in that way, but doing it in a really positive way where there's a lot of people who, when they are critical of the left and left movements, it's all negative all the time. But Michael was, as we were saying earlier, building community, was always trying to make us learn, but was just not somebody who was just going to sit and accept, the small kind of symbolic victories that some other people, are wont to do as well.
I also think that, it just has to be mentioned and said, he was someone mentioned this week on one of the tributes. It might have been you, David, but it was already thinking about he was thinking about what went wrong in the campaign, the Sanders campaign. He was thinking about what he did wrong in advocating for the Sanders campaign, and even on Sunday night when we spoke, we were talking about the protests and what needs to come next. And as soon as when the protests are exhausted and they know this move, and it kind of just becomes the pageantry of the protests, and no one's actually they're not feeling that pressure any longer, or whatever happens, he was already really thinking about how, okay, we have this energy, we have this movement, how do we not just let this plateau, or do we lock into this thing? And he was just constantly just trying to truly figure out how to make sure everyone had food, housing, medicine, and dignity. That was it. That was the goal. He was funny as fuck, brilliant, could go head to toe with any intellectual, but fundamentally that was the purpose.
Exactly. And before you head off, Bhaskar, I just wanted to share this. I'm sure that you would agree with me that I think Michael would have got a real kick out of Peter Dow tweeting out a memorial for Michael Brooks.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he believed in redemption, I guess. But the Dow thing happened real quick. He went from being so bad to so good that I'm suspicious. I'm not saying anything about him until I see where this boomer ends out. Where he ends up. But yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, we'll obviously try our best to continue his work. I mean, almost every day since the news hit, I wanted to like text him something. Like I finally got this book in the mail. A brief history of 7 killings, which was I ordered weeks ago at his recommendation. It's not cheap, so I did the Amazon marketplace, like buy used, and it arrives sometime in the next two months. And there's just like there's so much there in the illicit histories. There's such a huge archive. Like I actually noticed, I must have missed it at the time. He did a illicit history on Jamaica already. Probably one of the early ones. There's just so much he produced in such a short amount of time. And again, he had been in this for a while. He started Majority Report, I guess, 2012, 2013, something like that. But the actual like height of TMBS has just been the last couple years. So I don't know if we could all do it at the same exact speed as Michael, but I'm really glad that all of you are still in the fight and are still going to continue on in some form, and I'm really looking forward to what you all are able to produce. Like obviously, we all have varied talents, varied interests, or whatnot. I won't quite be the same, but there's a lot there that I know you three especially can contribute, and Michael knew that. And that's why he was the biggest advocates of his friends and collaborators, and he loved his family. I used to joke with him that he was like a good brown boy, the way especially he would talk about his mother and wanting to, the first little bit of money he got, he wanted to just give back to his family. And I'm like, that's my mentality. That's some like immigrant shit. This is like, who is this guy? So anyway, that's all I got to say. And also like all the love from the people who just have spent all this time with him but never met him in person. He was deeply, deeply appreciative of everyone who watched the show and participated in the Discord and whatever else. So I mean, that's the thing that makes it better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He would remind me in the overtimes to be nice when bad questions came in.
Yes.
But not even in like the market way, like I want to protect this $5 a month, but just in like this is my like family basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Bashar, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
See you, Bosco.
Talk to you soon.
I think Against the Web is going to be number 1 on these lists, and then 7 Killings is about to.
I know, it seems like
You love that book.
Yeah, that was back in the 2 Dope Boys era when we were
Yeah.
talking about that. But yeah, okay, here's, let's see, who we got up next? We got Vic and Forrest. Let's see.
Are they ready?
Oh, beautiful.
Yep. All right.
Well, all right, so we have right now Vic Viana, Comrade Vic, and let me see if Forrest, I think, is coming in. Vic has been doing so much wonderful work with us. He's producing all these illicit histories. He's also been a guest on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm really so happy to see your face, friend.
No, yeah, it's good to see you guys. I mean, despite, it's good to see you guys, even, unfortunately it's got to be these circumstances, but, yeah, it's, it comes and goes. But.
And let me also just introduce everybody to someone whose work you've seen almost daily is our friend Forrest, who is our video editor and producer.
How's it going?
Yeah, how's it going, Forrest? I'm so happy that you're here with us.
Forrest has been working overtime
He's been
these last couple
all
days.
night.
Last week, just crushing it with some compilations you'll see soon. So thanks for that, Forrest.
Yeah, tonight, I guess, right?
Yeah, later tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start with Vic and then we'll go to Forrest. But, maybe you could take a moment to, sort of talk about, either your friendship with Michael or how you came to meet him and work with us.
Yeah, so I had actually, just about a year and a half ago, a little bit more than that, I reached out to him online, I was in a spot, in my career where I was kind of burnt out from working for like bigger media organizations and kind of all the BS that entails. So I was reached out saying, hey, I'm curious what it's like on the independent media side of things. I really love, the way you cover foreign policy. And I've been listening to TMBS for like a year at that point. And, so we met up at this like South African restaurant down the block from his house. He was a little late, I'm hearing that's a regular thing. And so, we were kind of talking about different, left media things, what's going on, where we thought things were going. And then as we were wrapping up, he was like, okay, but, how can I help you? And I just, was kind of, it didn't, the start of that conversation was not me, trying to get some help or ingratiate myself. He was just so, we kind of clicked, and he was like, look, how can I help you out? And I was, so then we kind of start talking from there. And that's kind of how the genesis of the illicit history videos kind of came about. Was kind of just seeing there, like where we could kind of synthesize and, kind of elevate the work that he had already been doing.
Yeah.
And then part of that conversation too, I had kind of said, oh, well, I've also kind of thought about, I'm mostly a behind the scenes kind of person, but, I'm kind of curious about getting in front of the mic maybe, or the camera. And he was like, immediately like, oh, well, come on the show, man, like come hang out in the studio, so he just really like, and from hearing a lot of these tributes, like it seems like he really, anytime he saw sort of not even potential, but, oh, you're someone on the left who's trying to do this work, like, here's what you can do, and I'm going to help you. And, he had no he was so willing to like share his platform with people and, really just grow. It's almost like he was using media and his platform to like organize, more left media, and kind of plant seeds and, all that. And I really value, all that.
No, absolutely. I mean, he took in so many people, myself included, and it's amazing to hear that's, wasn't a one-off, actually, that he was constantly building this. So I also wanted to, bring in Forrest here too, because I know that you have a nice story about meeting Michael and him,
Yeah, mine was like some shit you'd see in like a biopic or something. Like you'd be like, oh, like this didn't happen. So I got out of college, and I was like a fan of the Majority Report. Like I was just watching the videos, like messing around. I think the first one I watched was like, I just saw it again the other day. The one where Sam took down Joe Rogan for like platforming right wing people. Mm-hmm. And I was just out of college, and I realized like they don't care if you're like just out of college. Like they want work experience. So I was going to like contacting pretty much every media company, and like nobody wanted someone fresh out of college that had no work experience. So one day, because I live up in New Paltz, like upstate. So one day I took the one place that wanted like somebody to talk to them in an interview was like, it was like an unpaid internship in a documentary hall, like a community TV hall. And it went really badly. And I remember thinking like, they don't even want my like unpaid labor. Like I can't even give away my skills. But it was like in downtown Brooklyn. So I went afterwards just to get some food because I had been up like so early in the morning to leave for the city. And Michael was just standing outside of like Trader Joe's. And I don't know, like I never really talked to people that I like see that I'm like, I recognize this person from somewhere. And then I realized it was Majority Report. And we didn't even talk about like editing or anything. We just like had a random conversation with me about like, like what I was doing and like why I was in Brooklyn. And I don't know, it was just like, it felt like an instant connection. And then he like said goodbye to me before he left, and I messaged the account later, and I was like, oh, by the way, like I forgot to mention, like I'm a video editor if you ever need any help with that. And like a week later, he responded to me from like his own account, and he was like, oh, you're a video editor, right? Like we met at that Trader Joe's, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, want to come down to Majority Report Studios for a night and like see what we do, and then maybe like I have some editing work for you. We're gonna launch a channel. It was so out of random, and it was something that I needed so badly at that moment, and it always felt like almost like a miracle because I was really like, I don't know, I was broke. I was so close to just like giving up and like working in a kitchen again or something, like not trying to pursue this. And like, it was just in that moment, like it was like the perfect synthesis, I guess.
And, so it's been so nice working with you both, especially doing stuff with this YouTube channel because it's constantly in communication. Especially, I'm sure Vic was doing it a little bit before I did, and as of course, it was a really nice thing that to just sort of constantly be in collaboration. Sometimes it wasn't when you got a late night text, but Michael was always working. Like that's one thing I've been realizing more and more is that he was just constantly on and moving the project forward because he really believed in what he was doing, but he also, believed in the team around him too, that he trusted everybody, to create so much incredible work. And, we would not be where we are with the show without both your work, Vic, and Forrest's, so we really, really appreciate that. And I don't know if y'all have any more sort of memories you want to share with Michael. I know there's the work, but also, just sort of how you want to been remembering him in this past week. I'd also really appreciate, y'all having space to share that now too.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about Michael too that some people have said is that he was such a competent guy, but unlike a lot of people who can have a big ego or whatever, he would make space for other people and fully encouraged everyone to be confident and have a big ego. And I back at the February show, I was able to introduce him to my partner, and I made some self-deprecating joke in the process of introducing them, and then Michael's just like, oh, this guy, he can make things but he can't sell. And he just totally teased me, and it just, he would never whenever I would kind of go down that self-deprecating route, he just always no, come on, man, that's bullshit. So he just really, his no bullshit attitude extended towards building people up, right? And I really value that,
Yeah, I think a lot of these qualities we're gonna have to just make sure to cultivate and find in ourselves, because it seems like that's the one thing that's getting through to everyone and connecting everyone. It's just the humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add, Forrest? No.
I don't know. I just thought it was so nice how he would check in on everyone, with the quarantine and everything. I'd get a daily, before he asked any questions about work or anything, he'd be like, how's it going? Is your family good? Because he met both my parents at shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was just such a nice thing. And one of the last texts he sent, or one of the last text conversations, I don't remember what we were even talking about. We were talking about traveling or something. Just the idea of it after this, after the quarantine is over, because I said I wanted to go to South Carolina and he wanted to go get back to traveling everywhere else. And he sent me that the Tony Blair documentary, where it's his life post presidency or whatever, post prime ministership or whatever. And he was like, that's the goal. And it was the really obnoxious Tony Blair spending state money on.
That's so funny. One time he told me that if he was ever going to go the evil route, it would be Tony Blair.
Yeah, he had something with Tony Blair. It was there's some strange affinity there. I don't want to get too deep into it, but
yeah,
Tony's name was mentioned
many a time, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Forrest and Vic, y'all been such a big part of this project, and I'm happy, to say that we're going to work as far as we can to continue that work and make sure that goes forward. I know that there is an illicit history already sort of locked and ready to go for some people that we'll try to release sometime in the near future. And thank y'all both for taking a little bit of time with us tonight, and for everything you've done for us and for our friend Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Love you guys.
I love y'all.
Peace.
Peace, man. Are we all good, Matt?
Yes, we are. I believe. I'm going to profile you, make you the spotlight, because I need to change your name again real quick, and it's an email address this time. So
yeah,
I believe this is David Slavic.
Oh, wonderful.
Change.
Okay, yeah. Well, coming up next is David Slavic, a good friend of the show, somebody who people always confuse us for each other. But he was really instrumental, especially at the beginning of getting the show off the ground. So thank you so much for that work. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Yeah, it's really been one of the great pleasures of my life. And, I think one of the things that I've learned from this project is that get involved, because you don't know where it's going to lead. I remember first talking to Michael. I was on my deck in D.C. Trump had just got elected. He'd been talking about starting his own show. He was a little reluctant at the time, which is interesting because everybody knows Michael as a confident person. I know you know this, and we all know that he is. And Leisha, you know this as well. But deep down, Michael was vulnerable. And I think that's what made his project so powerful, is that he was able to engage that vulnerability and then make it and weaponize it towards a strength. One of the things that I realized over the course of the process of going through, helping start the show and seeing it grow into what it is today, and seeing you all here today, taking it into a next iteration, is that, find those new people in your life where you're along a journey and go with them, because you don't know where it's going to take you, and you don't know what it's going to bring you. I can say this like wholeheartedly that Michael, he helped me grow out of a tough situation. I was in Washington, D.C. I wasn't happy. I was working in some, sort of centrist think tank type environments, but I was a lefty. I was always trying to find the project that was like on the left that was in this environment. And he said, well, why don't you just become and be a lefty? And I did. Mm-hmm. But I met my wife through the show. I have 2 children because of that. And all those types of things are the things that happen when you take those chances. I really recommend that everyone sort of take Michael's lesson and say, like, focus on your vulnerability, focus on what you want to grow from, and then go and do it. And find those people and make that team around you that'll make it possible. I know that when David and Matt and I we all talked this week, and it just it was very hard. Like, I haven't actually met David in person. I've met Matt in person, of course, and at least I haven't met you, but I've had Michael talk about you. Heard Michael talk about you for many times. But it really is about making that community around you. And I know that in our Discord channels and in the YouTube chats and on Twitter, we have this whole environment, this whole garden of people who have grown out from this, who have become better people, become better leftists, and become better citizens, and made the world that they want to see around them. And I think that this is the project that does that. So one thing that we could take, as the show moves forward and as we all move forward, is to understand that Michael's not gone. Michael's in us. And, that's what's going to push us forward. And just think about what would Michael do. And I know that seems silly, but it's true.
This is true.
I don't think it's silly.
I think I wanted to add, David, that Michael always did get a kick that you met your wife through the show.
First TMBS babies.
It's like people are building their careers, people are falling in love.
Yeah. And it's really one of those things that's it's funny. It's I've met a lot of different people. I just talked to Jean Bajelon, friend of the show today. I talked to Corey Pine today, friend of the show. I talked to Rich Jensen, who's I think a Seattle legend through the show. Booked him on another show that my friend is working on. Just the number of people that we know and the things that have grown out of that sort of tapestry of connection is something that you have to bring to every day. And Michael was always doing that. He was reaching out to people. He was doing those things. He was making those connections. And I think that some of them were formal, some of them were informal, some of it was casual, some of it was just friendly. But as we've heard from everyone here, from Bhaskar, from Waz, from everyone, it's just that believing in people and then letting people know that you like what they're doing, that could be all that's needed to make people push forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much for taking a little time to join us tonight.
Yeah.
Give my love to Heidi and congratulations on the 2 little ones.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
See you, David.
See
you. So good seeing David's face, honestly.
Yeah.
So, do we have
we have Joshua Kahn Russell going to join us here, who did such a great job with the words. Also, while he joins us, I want to shout out David for taking lead on the statement on Tuesday, about a week ago. We worked on that together, but David really did a great job on that. So just wanted to shout you out for that, man.
Thanks, man. It meant a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're joined by someone who most of y'all already know, good friend, brother, Joshua Kahn Russell. How are you doing, Joshua?
Hey guys.
Hey.
What a nourishing show this has been to watch. I just want to start by building on actually where Waz started by acknowledging you, Matt, David, and Leisha, that y'all have been the backbone of this project. David and Matt as of TMBS, and Leisha as a backbone of Michael's life, obviously, and the strength that it takes to navigate how public of an experience this last week has been, and hold together a community of tens and hundreds of thousands who are in shock right now is tremendous. And that part of what we're doing is not just honoring Michael, but co-creating a public grief ritual. And you guys are doing just such a good job honoring Michael. And I just want to thank you for really doing right by him.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Del. Thank you for everything that you've done too. It's really meant so much to all of us.
Yeah.
I mean,
can I share some? Oh yeah, no.
No. I was just going to open it up to you to share whatever you were ready.
Yeah, I have some disconnected thoughts, but one thing I just want to share first is that I've been leaving little notes around my room of advice that I've gotten from Michael to remind myself, and one of them that's on my bedroom door just says, "Do more push-ups," and he always would tell me to do more push-ups. And through my process this week, anytime I felt like emotionally stuck, that's what I would do, and I would always immediately feel a little bit better. And so that's like one way that I think calling back on him to help me through grieving him. I was also I'm going to pull it up last night, scrolling through just like all like texts, which was a little bit of self-torture, but deeply fun too. And I found one that I wanted to share, which was from February 2019, which he texted me in the middle of the night. And he said, "Man, I'm a touch tipsy and exhausted. So I'll just say two things. Bernie needs to win, and I should be number one in the game."
Absolutely. And those are two of the worst fucking tragedies of the world that didn't come to pass.
Totally. And I just started cracking up. And it is a tragedy, but also he was number one in the game.
Yes.
And I want to appreciate for a minute Michael's ego, because it regularly just floored me. There was a time on the show when I complimented him and then paused and went to go actually extend, I can't remember what I was saying, but extend it to David and Matt. And then he quickly turned it back on himself, and he's like, well, when Jordan's on the court, everybody's got to pay attention to Jordan, right? And I thought it was just so funny and so audacious, and there was just such a real truth to it. There was just a real truth to his confidence. And egos can be a complicated engine, and I would struggle with his ego at times because he could get stuck in himself, which was something that I really related to. But it shifted in a deep way my understanding of personal ambition and personal greatness, and which is something that the social movement world that I'm a part of is deeply suspicious of, and I was trained to be suspicious of. And there's some good reason for that, but he also taught me that posture is what keeps us small. It's what keeps the left afraid of its own power. It's what keeps us from winning. It's what keeps us from really imagining what it would be like to really lead society, let alone doing the actual messy work required to make it happen. And in that process, what he really taught me more than anything else was to release shame around my own ambitions, shame around, like he encouraged me to be bigger, to talk more, to own my role, to break the taboos that are the barriers to the new world that's yearning to be born. And I sit in gratitude to him for that. And my sense is that he did that for many people, including people who he had never met directly, of inspiring them to, if not live up to their own greatness, to give themselves permission to try, Yeah. And I want to admit something, which is that I've been deeply ambivalent about media work my whole life, my whole arc as an organizer. And in many ways, the like online left, like YouTube sphere is very foreign to me. And in other ways, the culture of the show was very foreign to me. And it feels like a different universe than some of the movements that I come out of. And Michael was a bridge for me, and I was also a bridge for Michael. And we were constantly working on each other from these two different kind of ends. And in the TMVS sphere, he always went out of his way to tell me that I belonged here, that I was part of the team. That my particular interests were not just tangential to the project, that they were threaded through it. And sometimes I really doubted that. You know, and I never told him that explicitly, but he could sense it, that whenever I'd get into this kind of like self-imposed outsider posture or new kid kind of posture, he pushed me to just like stop getting in my own way, you know? Mm-hmm. Matt, I know you're not on the screen, but that you're listening. It was, I want to also admit in the show prep email that you sent when you suggested that we, you know, share a little bit about our take on the future of the project in his absence, I was like super intimidated. I was like, who am I to say publicly what should happen with this platform on air so soon? You know, I was like, don't we need to have like 10 meetings about that first? Which obviously would not have been Michael's style.
No time. Hurry up.
Exactly. And so then, after I got that email, I centered in my body, and I knew exactly what he would want me to do. It was totally clear. And he would say he didn't build this platform for it to not be used as a vehicle for change. He wouldn't want it to die on the vine. And yeah, he was central to it. And I appreciate what you were saying earlier, David, which was he was cultivating everyone in this community to hold the space together, which is what, just as a quick tangent, that's what great leaders do, is they build everyone else up around them, but not at the expense of their own greatness. And in the organizing spaces that I come from, we often get the former part. We're always about lifting up other people's leadership, but never want to hold space ourselves. And he was doing both at the same time. There wasn't a contradiction there. And he would want me to lean into this moment and be distinct about my piece of the puzzle, which was different than other people's pieces. And when deep visionaries die, there's an opening where people dream into the space of where it could have gone. And that's a sacred generative process. And I'm grateful to everyone who's doing that, especially you, Lucia, because I know that's a thing that you've been really holding in the last week. And so this is where Michael and I were headed together. He wanted me to do more work with him on the real big picture, which is that we are at war. We are at war. And yes, it is a class war. And the mechanics of the struggle between labor and capital are the foundation of the terrain that we are on. And the way that his project was focused on helping the left recover that is central, obviously. And there's a there's a war that's much bigger than that going on. And it is a war between a culture of death that has built a machinery that has brought every living system on the planet to the brink of crisis or collapse. And when he and I would talk about love and empathy, it was because those are the fundamental practical tools in this war. And that the real big picture is nature, and not nature as some disconnected green anarchist, blah, 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 not some romantic whatever. Human beings are a part of nature. And if you care about human beings, you need to locate ourselves in understanding that not only are we a part of nature, but that how in this time of transition, we are actually being asked to relearn how to be human together because this system has robbed us of that humanity. And that's the culture that Michael would rail against, right? And so the political turbulence that we are experiencing right now, which is just the surface manifestation of the crisis, is not temporary. This is a multi-generational process that we're in. And we need to locate ourselves in the historical trajectory of the species. And that in that is the synthesis of the material and the energetic. And Michael and I would talk about a number of syntheses. One was Machiavellian spirituality, which was his word. I never actually loved that term, but it was materialist anti-racism. It was trauma-informed personal development. It was compassion and the way that movements make meaning in people's lives, and the wisdoms beyond just the rational. We would talk about, the C.S. Lewis quote, which is, humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less. And so part of what I want to contribute to the project, actually, I want to actually admit another vulnerable thing out loud, which is he'd
have the funniest shit to say right now. He'd
Yeah.
be acknowledging
What do you think he would say
and
right
he would
now?
also be just making so much fun of you at the same time.
Oh, totally.
And it's killing me that he can't be doing both right now.
I loved how he teased me about how I'm fucking caricature of myself.
He'd be going hard right now, and he would
Totally.
be saying, "Yes, Josh, I love you. This is perfect."
Joshua's also sort of the complete antithesis of the right-wing Mandela character. So like him saying like Joshua.
Oh man, I loved how he got me to stop taking myself so seriously.
Oh, he would be teasing you. He'd be teasing
And that
me.
balance, yeah. Well, and because what I learned from him was that that's how we take the work seriously, is by not taking ourselves so seriously.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I'm totally guilty of that. And I love, I've never had a friend who teases me like he did. But one thing that he pushed me on that I wasn't going to share, but I will, because then I have to do it if I say it on air, which is that he always wanted me to speak more directly to visionary plant medicines and to the reciprocity of ceremony and the cultures that are stewards of them. And I was very cautious and delicate about how I wanted to talk about that publicly. And he and I were just talking about, literally this month, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get ready, but I have my own boundaries, and I need the show to go a certain way in order to be able to do this well, because the way that people on podcasts, especially YouTube, talk about DMT and whatever is, to me, ridiculous. And we wanted to talk about the dialectics of psychedelics, and so I want to say out loud that I am ready for that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And I'll share one other contradiction of vision, and then share gratitude and maybe be done. But here's another contradiction we talked about around vision and where we needed to go, which is there's two quotes that are kind of cliches in my organizer circles that I like to juxtapose. One is the Spanish poet Antonio Machado, who said, "There is no road. We make the road by walking." And then the other is a George Harrison quote, which is, "If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." And that's another synthesis that we leaned into a lot, that we need to both be students of our context, non-dogmatic, but still be anchored by a North Star, so that we can keep our eyes on the prize. And one hard part about mourning is grieving what could have been, because he was just getting started, and he and I were just getting started together, and I just want to say that I'm trying to center in being grateful for the time that we had, and that it's okay that it ended where it did. It's okay, the world.
It's hard to accept. Yeah. I hear you saying that, but it does not feel okay yet. I get what you're trying to say, but nothing about this feels okay.
Yeah, to be clear, what I mean by that.
No, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just it's gonna take a long time to accept being.
Yeah, it's
okay
gonna take a lot.
It is okay cosmically, sure, but it might take my entire lifetime on this realm to accept that.
Yes, me too.
Yeah,
me too. And that it's. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's okay that it's not okay.
Okay. This is getting very into Bill Clinton depends on the definition of is territory.
Yeah. No, but it's
I think we all are on the same page.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be there with the processing of it because, like, you know, in terms of the project, like, you know, part of Michael's perspective was that you can accept reality and orient to it, or you can fight it. And that Michael's passing is something that, through learning about how to embrace the tragedy and the heartbreak of it, which may not be fair or right, but to accept that it is what it is, and that we may be doing lifetimes of work to get present to that. That Michael wanted us to sit with what is, and so. So to me, the lesson I take from that is to like appreciate what I had with him, and that no matter, you know, like that gratitude is a tool to dig yourself out of anything emotionally. And so so the more that I can sit in gratitude, the more it brings ease to my disbelief, which is just like, you know, I've been in and out of all week, and obviously, you know, mourning is different for everyone, but non-linear in general. And so one practice that I'm trying to do is every morning write a list of things that I'm grateful for from Michael that morning, and including, you know, like, and just the way that he supported my work off the show. And the way that he supported the Wildfire Project. I mean, a week before he passed, he donated $600 to the Wildfire Project. Like we were directly.
He was serious about his actions. Like there was no BS.
Yeah.
You know, Joshua, I think that there's about like a 10-part series of all of this. You know, like there's so much that we're gonna have to discuss and delve into. And
definitely.
One thing that's helping me is that, are you public on social media?
Only on Instagram.
Okay. The music you've been sharing that you think Michael would have enjoyed, I think that's definitely helping me, and I would imagine it's helping a lot of people too, just process this.
Yeah. I'll okay. So on the weekend show on Saturday, I talked about the relationship between music and spirit, and how movement music is praise music because the songs we sing in the streets and workshops call us into a collective yearning and shared vision of how we can be together, as well as processing our pain and trauma and kind of like spitting out the poison of the injustice of the world and in the injustice of Michael's death in this moment. And so there's a song that actually wants to come out right now. And I'm not a singer, but it's a song we sing in Wildfire to celebrate living, because Michael is dead, and he would want us to live out loud, on purpose, with precision, with openness. And so I would like to sing a song to Michael right now, if you'll let me. I'm gonna drink some water.
I will. I'm touched, but I'm also, you know, we have to acknowledge that Michael would be cracking up.
Oh, he would be like,
he'd be
making me really,
about this.
That's why I'm doing it.
Okay. I think it's okay. What do you think, Matt?
I think let's do it.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay.
I'm gonna let life move me. I'm gonna let life stir me deep. I'm gonna let life wake me from an ancient sleep. I'm gonna laugh all my laughter. I'm gonna cry all my tears. I'm gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. The sun when it clears. The sun when it clears.
Thank you so much, Joshua.
I feel compelled to point out that David also, if you go into David's Instagram, he played. I didn't know you could play and sing at the same time. Very talented, David.
Soccer, singing.
Yeah. Really hoping you would do that on the show.
I have it. It's if people want to listen to it, I put it up on my Instagram. It's just an old cowboy campfire song that made me think of Michael.
That's beautiful.
It really brought me to tears, and David, it just really helped me in the moment that I clicked on it. There was like something that wanted to come out, and the like soulful voice that came out of you just deeply resonated in my heart. So thank you for putting that out there.
And the same to you. That was so beautiful, Joshua. We're gonna have many more conversations in the future on that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Joshua.
Appreciate you guys.
Love you.
It's been such a blessing having
Talk
you.
to you soon, man.
Love you, Joshua.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, I think you might be best to
Susan's
introduce.
up next. Susan Green is gonna definitely probably change how I've introed her when she comes on, but she worked with Michael just as an advisor and.
Hey, Susan, you actually your audio's on, and I think you might need to close out the YouTube.
I'll turn off the. I was watching the show.
Oh no, of course.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Now we're waiting for your video.
Start video.
There we
go. You see on the right hand. Perfect. There she is. So Susan worked very closely with Michael as an advisor, and I don't want to, energy worker. Would you say that's appropriate, Susan? I don't want to use language that you think is a little bit of an eye roll. But Susan was who was helping Michael strategize his career and integrate all of this spirituality and kind of bigger life stuff that is becoming every day a bigger part of the show. Please, I just want to give you the floor to share, Susan.
Yes, well, thank you. I've been watching the live stream, is that what it's called, the whole time, and it's so moving, and it's just been such a horrible week. I just can't even, but it's also been an amazing week. It's been incredible to just hear how many people all over the world felt they knew Michael. I know everyone's been talking about this, and I have to say it too. The lives that he touched, it's just extraordinary. And, for me, I'm so honored that I got to play this pretty major, although somewhat secret role in the background of his life. And it's so interesting that as he was coming out more and more as a spiritual seeker, and I really don't like that word, he was saying to me, I want to bring you on the show. I want more and more people to know about this work. And we were just kind of starting to try that out and see how it felt, and then bingo, he was gone. And so here we are all now, strategizing and visioning and working to keep the legacy alive. And I just want to say, to you guys, to Alicia, you have been amazing this week. Amazing. Alicia has been a freaking force of nature, off the charts. I'm so sorry that I couldn't come to Massachusetts on Sunday in person and be with all of you. And I'm just really glad that at least I get to be here in this way tonight. So what would you like me to talk about with Michael? What shall we out about our beloved boy?
I guess because you guys had recorded an interview, I believe, last week. Correct me if I'm wrong, or the week before.
Right before, yeah.
Yeah. I guess I just, because you spoke so often about how to kind of like bridge these worlds and how to grow this audience, I just kind of was curious if you could kind of share just a quick, if it's possible, sort of just share with the audience about how these two things can be merged. I know a lot of people are listening that are atheists and aren't into any of this stuff, and it's like we've definitely like made a hard left, and we're definitely talking about the spirituality and bigger cosmos a lot now. And I just was curious, Susan, if you could just kind of ground that in like how that literally was allowing Michael to do this work, getting in touch with some of this stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can talk about that. I guess I'll tell you that when Michael first showed up at my door, he came, as a teenager. Some of you may know, when he was a teenager, he ended up in this mindfulness meditation group. And so his experience of spirituality, and again, I don't love that word, was very much cast in a certain mold. And it's a mold that's very much about not being in the world. It's an anti-materialist world. It's a vegan world. It's an ascetic world. And he wanted nothing to do with that. And because of those kinds of lifestyle values, he had really just gone the whole other side. And then he found his way to me. And I think one of the things that he loved about me, that even though there was this deep vein of spirituality, I was a total get down dirty material girl, and I said to him, "Are you kidding me, dude? I spend a fortune on face cream, I'm all about how I look. I'm the vainest spiritual teacher you're ever going to meet in your life. It's fine. And we have to integrate everything." And often we would talk the day after a show, and I would say, yeah, you were brilliant. Yes, you're a comedic genius. All that is fantastic. But I hate the shirt you were wearing. Why were you wearing that shirt? It clashes with the background. And, for me and Michael, it was always about how do we completely integrate all the wonder and magic and incredibleness that was inside of him and strengthen that so it really can hold him in the work that it was really clear to me that he was here to do. And especially in this last year, and even, we just happened to have a really long FaceTime call literally the night before he died. And he was going on and on about, I see it. The inner is so important. The inner is so important. You have to help me. Over the next few weeks, I want you to really help me integrate all the inner with the outer. And that was very much what the work was about. And for me, spirituality, it's not some pie in the sky, loosey-goosey, airy-fairy kind of I don't know what. It's about being fully present in our lives and really embracing our lives in the world and doing that with as much presence as we possibly can. And so many people are talking about Michael's heart. Well, that heart was huge, and that's what true spirituality is. When Michael talked about kindness, when Michael, especially in these last months, he was so done with all the toxicity on the left. That's coming from a deep spiritual wisdom and insight inside of him, because he got, we're all in this together. Even all the people we can't stand on the other side, we've got to build bridges. That's a true spirituality. And I think he was really beginning to understand that the work, what Joshua was saying just before, the work is enormous. The planet's broken, the political situation. It's like, I'm 72 years old. I never in my life thought I would see anything like this in my lifetime. It's unbelievable. And Michael knew better than anyone that if we're not continuing to do the work of strengthening from the inside out, there's no way we're going to have the strength that we need to take on the problems that we face and to find ways to make peace between everyone. And that was what his spirituality was about.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, Leisha.
No, it totally does. I think that, you were able to kind of put some words to some sort of loose phrases that have been thrown around, and also just, Michael didn't want spirituality or religion to be a commodity. He wanted it to be directly available to everyone, and he didn't want it to be he thought it was bullshit that the right has such a monopoly on these ancient things that are now become and honestly an eye roll. It's if you're not an atheist, okay, you're kind of dumb. That is a bit of a prevalent narrative on the left, and it alienates people. And it doesn't mean you have to have this. Maybe it's not for you. But you can have this and still have, sharp political analysis. And that, I think Michael, if anyone can prove that, it's Michael. Because there wasn't anyone sharper.
Absolutely. No one was sharper. No one. He had a laser intelligence.
Yeah.
Such an amazing combination of qualities. So that's a little introduction to spirituality and politics. And, as some of you know, the next book was going to be an integration of spirituality and politics. And I think all of us are very committed to continuing the legacy of his work. And part of that is going to be, I know David was working on another series of books with him. And by the way, David, let me just say those commentaries that you guys wrote together, oh my God. I would always text him the next day and say, oh my God, that was brilliant. And I hope that you will publish all of that work because it's so important.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, you're very welcome. It's so important. And, you know, what can I say? Spirituality is about vision and insight and trusting one's intuition and really listening to the deep voice of our inner being. And that's what Michael wanted people to really get at a very deep level. He had no interest in any kind of, I don't even know what to call it, wishy-washy, hocus pocus. That's so not what he was about. And again, I think that's what drew him to me, because I'm like this, so I've often been referred to as a very practical mystic. You know, Michael always said, you're like this weird blend of yoga meets Jung meets Machiavelli. And it's like, what? How does that all come together? And yet, to me, that's what we all want to strive for.
Well, Josh knows where Machiavelli comes from, so you can clash heads.
I could tell you, yes.
You know, I think the language Michael used was dignity and respect, and I think that was, you know, spirituality to him was dignity and respect and dignity and respect.
Exactly, and that's really it, you know, and that comes from a deep knowing that underneath we're all the same.
Yeah, like, universal principles.
We're all the same. We're all the same, and it's just our identity that gets in the way. So it's very late. The show has gone on way longer than I think we all thought it would. Doesn't everybody want to say goodnight? I mean, it's wonderful to see you guys. And, you know, Alicia, of course, I love you dearly, and David and Matt, I barely know you except through the show, but it's very nice to be with you in this way. I did see you at the live shows, too. And so
it's so great to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Sweet dreams, everybody.
Sweet dreams.
Okay. We have a little more. We have a little more.
We have a little bit more ahead of us.
Some clips.
What, actually, yeah, you're going to do the compilation now?
Yeah. Got some clips.
Okay, I'm going to say goodbye and go back and watch the compilation. Can I do that?
All right.
That's great. Thank you.
Bye, Susan.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.
Wow, that was wonderful. Well, you know, to everybody who's still watching with us, you know, thank you so much. I mean, we were just able to hear from so many different people in Michael's life, you know, from a full spectrum. And I hope that, you know, you were able to appreciate the really beautiful tapestry that he created of people around him and just how much love so many folks have for him. So just programmatically, what we're going to do next is we have would you like me to do it from my computer, Matt?
I got it ready here.
Okay, you have it ready? Yeah. So we're going to do...
Two super producers. Uh-oh.
We have a short compilation, you know, about 15 minutes or so, of clips of Michael's that Forrest has painstakingly put together. And thank you so much again, Forrest, and everybody's put in work over this past week that we're going to watch. And then we'll come back on very briefly to sign off with all of y'all. And then we have a lot more after that. We have over an hour of short videos because we couldn't have everybody on the live shows you've seen. It's just, it's difficult to squeeze everybody in. And so many people were so close to Michael and he affected their life so much that we actually have around another hour actually of just short videos, around 2 minutes, from lots of different people who reached out, from Glenn Greenwald to Richard Wolff. I mean, so many different folks. I can't even start going down the list. So I hope that y'all, you know, will stay with us through that, and thank everyone for being here. And if we're ready, we can pull up this list.
Yeah, so you guys, when we play this, just kill your video so we can just, so you're not, yeah. All right, here we go.
So basically, I'm in August launching a new show. It's going to be called, very inventively, The Michael Brooks Show.
Wow. How long did that take you to come up with?
You know, ironically, it took a really long time because first you go through like a million,
ironic.
Yeah. And none of them work.
Right.
And then at a certain point in like a state of exhaustion and trying to like come up with like clever inversions of like Vibes Cartel songs, you're just like, Michael Brooks Show.
I can't lie, man. I'm a sucker for Nation of Islam Obama.
Me too.
The arc of history bends towards Sharia. Yes.
Yes.
Sign me up for that, please.
What problem would you, everything you're building here right now, right? Do you want the government to tell you how to do all these things and all the regulations that you got to have your electric thing this far from this and like all of
the regulations like that for construction are important though. You do have to make sure that people don't do stupid shit. But make sure you don't have a power line that's near a water line. There's a lot of.
But I would put most of that on the builders though. They want to build things that are good. Now I get it.
That's not true. Listen, people.
People are going to build
corners all the time. Like you have to have regulations when it comes to construction methods, or people are going to get fucked.
They cut corners when there are regulations anyway.
They do. They would cut a lot more if there weren't regulations.
I'm not totally.
You go to third world countries and look at construction methods. They're fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
That's why schools collapse on kids in foreign countries sometimes.
You know, it's so silly to even, unfortunately, to have to talk about these little nonsensical things. Because I like talking about ideas, not about people. I never asked for more money. That's number one. I left. I told them.
I can't believe he must not watch The Critics, right? Because if someone calls me out, rightfully so, for using some lame, tired argument, then I would be hyper aware of it and I wouldn't use that argument anymore. But he's still doing it. He's still saying ideas. I just want to talk about ideas. What are your ideas? I want to know what his ideas are.
Well, I can't. My brain is still in recovery mode from taking in so many high-level, important ideas.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hit us again. Come on, go. I have to say that my brain is still in recovery mode from taking in so many high-level, important ideas.
When did he say that? Was that recent?
That was
high-level, important ideas.
It was within the last year, and it was referring to a live event he did with Brett and Eric Weinstein.
Happy.
That's such an incredible concept.
Nothing to worry about at all. Just relax.
Just relax, Dave.
Just ideas.
Just ideas.
Just rational thought.
Just rational thought, Dave.
Think rationally.
Think rationally. Ooh, mean feminists on college campuses not thinking rationally. He's sitting there in complete boredom, just like, yeah, well, you know, there was Jacob Javits, and there was moderates, and there was... Jesus Christ, he's a nice kid, but he's not the brightest. And all of a sudden, wait, the Angels got Hernandez.
What is your opinion on Brazilian Prime Minister Bolsonaro regarding...
Can you just play that again? Can we just do that again?
What is your opinion on Brazilian Prime Minister Bolsonaro regarding... Oops, there's a lot of things moving here.
Bolsonaro.
What is your opinion on Brazilian Prime Minister Bolsonaro?
See, it's pretty good.
What the fuck is he doing?
Talk about delusional.
What a cuck. What a freak weirdo cuck. You know, Lula is older than him. He's a political prisoner. And you see him in those interviews. I have no doubt Lula could out-push up that motherfucker. All right, guys, it's Lula time. People ask me why I talk about this so much. I think, like, why would you talk so much about, I don't know, Nelson Mandela when he was in prison? It's extraordinary if you reach it how flimsy the evidence is. There's no evidence he ever lived in this apartment. There's no deed in his name. There's no confirmation, and that's all they got.
For those who don't know, talk about Lula's presidential legacy, Michael. Why was he so popular?
He lifted 40 million people out of poverty. That's the top line. 40 million Brazilians went from being in poverty to basically being somewhere in the lower middle class.
One of the reasons that I do think Brasilia is so important is because it's going to reflect and parallel other situations we face. This is a very meaningful interview, and I just request that as you watch and as you listen, please spread stories about what's happening in Brazil.
Because as we explained in that procedure before the United Nations, Judge Sergio Moro always had a political agenda.
Do you think there was a U.S. role in the lawfare and political process against Lula and the Workers' Party?
What I would say is that by the logic of things, I have the impression that, yes, there was.
But what's amazing about these leaks is that not only did the prosecutors, who of course in public were saying the evidence is overwhelming, the evidence is irrefutable, the evidence is undeniable, not only were they saying internally, we think the evidence is incredibly weak. We're not even sure we have a case against him. And I'm not talking about early on. I'm talking about like 3 days before they indicted him.
I want to tape this. We're going to send this to some people in Brazil, is all I'll say. But we're going to do a Lula Livre, Lula finally Livre from the audience, please. Lula Livre. Please, everybody. Lula Livre. Lula Livre. Lula Livre. Greetings from Philadelphia to Sao Paulo. Lula Livre.
Michael traveled down to Brazil. I'm not sure exactly where. Where was he?
I don't know.
I don't know what the specific location was. And he interviewed Lula. As Brendan described it earlier when we were before the show, this is like celebrating, like this is like when your friend has a baby. So congratulations to Michael. As you can see in this picture, he is ecstatic. And Lula looks a little bit nervous.
You quoted a writer whose name I'm forgetting from Mozambique, to Glenn Greenwald, who said, when the people are afraid, they elect monsters to protect them. And I want to know two things about this. One, I know, of course, we need a program, policy, intellectual program, but are there spiritual or emotional qualities a leader needs to help take the people out of fear, have some sense of hope, and, if I may, is Bernie Sanders that kind of leader?
Será que Bernie Sanders seria esse tipo de líder? Sabe, eu sonho, sabe, se o Sanders ganhasse as eleições, a gente poderia sonhar, mesmo sabendo que um presidente americano terá por detrás dele, sabe, toda uma máquina armamentista poderosa que, sabe, às vezes dificulta a ação democrática do presidente. Eu acho que governar um país, você só governa corretamente se você tiver definido na tua cabeça para que você quer ser governo, para quem que você quer governar e qual é o teu lado.
This is Cornel West talking about the courage to love. And I don't think we should shy from these words. And I don't think we should shy from, whatever way you take it, the spiritual work. And that's one of many reasons, obviously, that I admire Cornel West so much. Is I do think that I wish there was a better word, but that spiritual dimension, that connection of the humility with yourself with the real bonds of empathy, because there has to be a actual corollary with the material efforts, or it is not going to happen. It is no one else with the sort of age and stature right now holding all of this besides Cornel West. I mean, I cannot emphasize, he is absolutely the most important public intellectual we have, and we have an abundance.
So he's got to check and see what the polls say.
And he,
That's so good.
you know what I love? I love that he has two modes. So when he says something like, Bernie Sanders is my, vanilla brother, you go, okay, well, here's the soliloquy coming. And then what's awesome is that when he says Joe Biden's is a good man, then it's like, the soliloquy's coming. Like it's the same starting point for total exaltation or complete shade.
Thank you. And it's an immense honor to be here, including definitely with Dr. West, who is an influence on me. And one of the major reasons that he's an influence on me is because of that synthesis and the ability to hold multiple truths. That we have to have some sense of a capacity here to do something with democracy, and then also not lie and deceive ourselves about what we are and what capitalism is and what empire is.
make a long story short, we spoke on the phone a couple of days ago, and he's going to be on the show next Tuesday. So
nice.
I'm super stoked.
Hey,
I am super stoked. Dr. West, thank you so much for doing this.
Brother, I'm the one who's blessed, and I want to salute you, not just for the work you do here on the radio, but your recent text against the web, dealing with some of these right-wing intellectuals, trying to keep them accountable. And you do a marvelous job, and it's just a blessing to be in conversation with you, though, brother. Indeed, indeed. The blues, of course, is tied to a kind of defeatless hope. That the hope can never be crushed, but you're going to get pushed back and probably lose anyway, but you keep coming.
I'm very happy to welcome to the program Slavoj Žižek. I have no doubt that you've heard of him. He's written...
I'm more happy than you to be at your show.
I love it.
A true leader is not the one who knows better than you what do you want. A true leader is the one who makes you aware of what you are able of your freedoms.
But I love this joke. A handful of middle-aged Jewish ladies are out for lunch, and the waiter comes in the middle of the meal and he says, "Is anything okay?" This is my favorite right now.
Oh, yeah. So maybe, unfortunately, I hope you had the same thing as me, or I rather don't hope in my mind that that's what we are. That's my attitude when I look at the news. Like, is anything okay? Is anything good that you hear in the news?
To me, obviously, Adolf Reed, primary intellectual influence on me, incredible hero, brilliant intellectual. Cornel West has meant a lot. Slavoj Žižek's meant a lot, and Noam means a lot. Joining us now. Very, very honored and happy to have him is Professor Noam Chomsky, who has been a public intellectual, linguist, activist for decades, and is author, of course, many books, including Manufacturing Consent, co-author of that book, big influence on me and this show. One of the many pieces of activism that we've I've appreciated immensely that you've been involved with, was advocating for President Lula when he was a political prisoner. And we were honored to cover it significantly on this show, and including using clips of yours explaining the situation.
Trump is actually, this sounds strong, but it's true. He is the worst criminal in human history. Undeniably.
Well, I just want to note, first of all, you're always at a bit of a disadvantage when you're up against an accent. So I just want to have that noted in the playing field. So I support Ilhan Omar. I don't buy, and I also, in fact, support Corbyn, in fact. And the reality is that these things are going to become debated on the merits. And we're not going to have a false equivalency and actually drag down the profoundly serious issue of anti-Semitism by equating it with all criticism of a sovereign nation state that administers apartheid in reality.
You are doing this and you're saying it in a way that person's going to see. And the same could be applied to Dave Rubin and Sam Cedar dunking on him all the time. It's kind of the same thing, and Michael Roberts as well. It's the same sort of thing.
Michael Roberts. So I first saw this, and I honestly...
That's gotta hurt. Was that just like a knife through the chest right there?
I actually honestly thought it was really funny. And I was thinking of, before we pull this tweet up, don't pull it up just yet, but I thought that Michael Roberts would be a hilarious character. Like, I could do Joe Rogan, like the thing of like the problem with David Rubin is like he wants to talk about ideas, but like if you're going to enter into that idea dojo, you have to be a black belt. I mean, there's a lot of, I understand that Frederick Douglass making a lot of the right noises, but I have a lot of concern about what it actually means when the Negro actually is in the main house. And I shouldn't be condemned for saying that. It's somehow if like Sam is calling him to whine. Because you could see like with Obama, just like, I think what Sam misses is that we need to build bridges in order to deal with the problem. Yeah. And then it would just be like, somehow George Bush would be like, so we just set off a brand new drone program in Pakistan, but I'm guessing you have a problem.
I didn't say something about a thought experiment on national television in order to encourage yahoos to harass people who own 7-Elevens. Go ahead, Sam. Bother me with your nonsense. This is I, Nelson Mandela, from Robben Island. I'm going to need a great deal of space right now. The way Steve Biko spoke about me at the meeting, I don't know if we can do rebel operations in Mozambique until I have 10 months of self-care.
Tulsi Gabbard. Raisins. Actually, he was enormously well behaved, I have to say, by his standards. Could very easily see like him becoming a, why don't people vote for fucking Tulsi Gabbard? Jesus Christ, the pure, sheer human beauty. Do you remember when he got caught on tape, Hot Mike, talking about how hot Melania was?
Oh, I vaguely remember.
He literally,
that.
it was amazing because he literally, it was like a, oh my God. This pure descent of the divine goddess. Oh my God. Thank you. Oh Lord. In 1971, I had a conversation with a retired beat cop, and he liked Ed Muskie, and he liked Franco, actually. You know, a lot of people don't like Franco, but a lot of people admired Franco. You can think what you think one way or another. We got to ask where people are standing. And I got to tell you, this beat cop, who I met in 1971, I think he died many years ago, he would not vote for Bernie Sanders. And the Democratic Party needs to ask itself, will Chris Matthews' imaginary friends vote for Bernie Sanders?
All right, guys. Peace and love. Lula Libre, Bernie. See you soon. What's your name? Do you want to come on? All right. This gentleman grabbed the camera, and thank you.
Many people know me. My name's Tom from Yakubia.
Tom from Yakubia. I do know you. Oh, my God. That's awesome. That's hilarious.
Bernie 2020.
Bernie 2020.
Medicare for all.
Medicare for all. Anything else?
A place for everybody to sleep.
A place for everybody to sleep.
We're running out of like bucket list guests.
Revealingly, in my weirdo version of a bucket list, we've hit all of them as soon as Cornell's on. Like Lula, Adolph Reed, Zizek, Cornell West. Like I don't like. Yeah, done. The bucket list interviews have been hit.
Wow. That was really touching.
Jeff Forrest.
Thank you, Forrest, so much for putting that together.
That's great.
And I think it did a good job at capturing a little bit of both the humor and the seriousness, and just quick cuts like it always was too, working with him.
And I like that he included how much guys like Zizek like loved being on our show, which is we were really proud of that. Like these older guys, like they thought of our platform as a place to come and have a conversation.
Right.
100%.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
So we have a minute or so here, but again, thanks to everyone who's watching. Coming up next, we're going to have a huge compilation of short videos that his friends and contributors have put together. It's really beautiful. I'm excited to share it with everybody, and we'll try to clip it up or put it out in other forms later in the future. But I just wanted to take a second, just because this is such a raw time, just to say thank you to Leisha and Matt and everybody and his family, for sharing their son and their brother with me. Michael was one of my absolutely dearest friends, and it's difficult to think about going on without him, but I know we can do it. And I'm just so inspired and touched by everybody. And I can't express my gratitude to all of y'all.
Yeah, I mean, it's grief is so weird. It's like one day it's like some moments you can't move, and right now I'm just in this complete denial of that he's gone. Like I just can't believe it. Like we were watching those clips and I'm laughing, and I just want to tell Michael, like, oh, I'm getting to spend so much time with David and Matt, and they're so awesome. And like right now I'm in a complete state of shock and denial, and that I think it's okay to be honest about grief. It looks there's no way it's supposed to be. And right now I'm just in a minute of just not believing that it could have possibly happened to me, this horrible thing. And David and Matt, it has been just like such a like, I don't know, a rudder and comfort to be able to just be in touch with you guys and get to figure out together how we move this work on and what your vision for the show is. And that is like the one comforting thing right now. I can't lose it because I'll lose it too hard, but so much love and just thank you for helping my brother put his work out there. Like your skills, and also Van and Forrest and everyone on the team, like you guys were working together, and there were so many other people, Adam and everyone, and just in this extended network that were just doing this work. And we've been roasting Michael about how he was late and a little disorganized and all that, but like he was picking all of you because those were things he couldn't do. And so without you, like you were the infrastructure for how this was happening. So like this work being out in the world, like you really need to sit and acknowledge yourselves. And we're eternally grateful for the work you've done and the work that you all continue to do. And that's everyone who's been on the show and has messaged all of us, and that is every single one of us all over the globe.
Thank you, Leisha.
Thank you. Did you have anything, Matt? Sorry.
No, I don't know if I have anything more to say right now.
I know.
I mean, I appreciated seeing you guys so much this weekend. It was last week was tough. I've never experienced anything like that. Like there's times I was crying so hard I couldn't even lift my arms up, like just crazy. And because he's been, before we did Michael Brooks show, we did 2 Dope Boys. We started that. He trusted me so early. Like that was we started that spring of 2016. I had only started in late October of 2015. And we made a Ben Carson rap in November 2015. That was like the very first time. The very first time I think, our like early on our comedic. The thing is like people talk about like people say in the chat like I can be funny, that I can help make up for Michael, but like it's so weird to make. Part of it was making Michael laugh. That's what I love doing so much.
Supreme honor.
Yeah, and it's like I most of what I said, it wasn't to make the audience laugh. It was to make Michael laugh, really.
Sure, of course.
And it's going to take a lot of, like, in my mind, that's where I'm still geared towards. So, it's a big loss. And I'm just, I guess the only consolation has been how public and positive it has been. It's been amazing to see, like, the effect he'd had and how much it would amaze him and gratify him, I think. So,
yeah. Well, to everybody, and again, just thank both of y'all. But to everybody listening right now, we're going to come back, and we're going to come back strong. We're coming back with another milestone, TMBS 150. We're going to figure out when and how we're going to do it. Probably going to take a little bit of time before we jump back into that project, but we're going to come back with something that we can all, be really proud of, and something that Mike will be proud of too, because I'm trying to channel that Michael energy. It's like, you got to be great. You got to
be impeccable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, signing off here for everybody. We love you all. We're going to put on this compilation video of all of these beautiful tributes, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody and seeing everybody soon.
Thank you, guys.
See you, everybody.
Brooks, it's your brother from a Brooklyn staircase. It's only right. I want to thank you for the friendship and for the knowledge, for the laughs, the insights, the encouragements. You spoiled us with your presence on this planet, and it's sad. It's a lesson that we didn't realize just how lucky we were to have you for this short amount of time. You made politics fun. You made politics international, hyper-local. You made politics hip-hop, reggae, spiritual, funny, empathetic, compassionate. You fought for us. You nurtured us. You educated us. You embraced all of us and even tried to engage with the most problematic characters among us. You checkmated pseudo-intellectuals with comedy, boldness, honesty, grace, ease. You continue to give us hope. Continue to give us strength. You're a legend. The great unifier of the left taught us how to be better human beings. Some people are so unique and rare that their work becomes even stronger after death. You're amongst them. Your words will forever guide us as we march forth on our mission. I love you, Michael Jamal Brooks, my brother for life, from flesh to stardust. May your name forever shine.
This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work, and I would like to say a few words about Michael Brooks. I'm as sad as I'm sure all of you are about his loss. He was a wonderful friend. We worked together. He appeared on my show, Economic Update, as I did on his. What I remember most about him, besides his energy and his warmth and the sharpness of his questions and comments, was what we talked about in our last conversation, about the need to reach out and do more programming on international issues. He was further along in that than I am, and showing me ways to do it. I really will miss him. I really will miss the chances of developing the projects we discussed. And I know that all of you who share much that we got from all that Michael did feel the same. My heart goes out to all of you. I feel the loss. We are still few, and this country needs us so badly. And we lost one of the people who could have made the biggest difference of all. In solidarity, this is Rick Wolff for Michael Brooks and all of you.
Hey, my name is Bill Fletcher, and I would say that I was a friend of Michael's. When I was 17, I lost one of my best friends. Circumstances are irrelevant to this, but the thing that struck me the most was that I didn't have a chance to say goodbye. His death was very sudden. I did not expect it at all. The last time I had spoken with him, we had talked about getting together when he was back in town. And that never happened. I never saw him again. I never had a chance to say goodbye. I never had a chance to thank him for having been such a wonderful friend. And when I got word that Michael had passed as suddenly as happened, I felt much the same way. Obviously, it was a loss, a tremendous loss to all of us, to our movement. But there was a particular deep loss that I felt in that I was not able to say goodbye. I was not able to thank him for his great work, for his courage with his podcast, with his views, with his editorial style, his willingness to take risks. I didn't have a chance to thank him for his support, his being there, the relationship that we built over several years. I didn't have that chance. And that's what affects me the most. He's a wonderful guy, irreplaceable, a great friend to many. And I miss him. I really miss him.
My name is Jean Badgeland, and I, like you, am in mourning for the loss of Michael Brooks. Someone who to me was, first of all, a friend, and secondly, a colleague. Michael's passing at such a young age is a tragedy and an incalculable loss, both to his friends and his family, and to the left community at large. Michael did more than anyone in leftist media space to educate a generation on not only the importance of understanding international affairs in an academic sense, but also caring about them in a deeper way. And he did so with wit, humor, charm, relatability, and intelligence, making these issues accessible to people from all walks of life. Michael, for example, will be rightly remembered for his tireless advocacy of Brazilian President Lula da Silva, but much of the work that I did with him focused on Middle Eastern affairs, and this speaks to Michael's extensive understanding of international solidarity and how he saw the struggle for human emancipation and dignity as a global circle, and how he called upon us to look beyond our petty differences and parochial interests to see a bigger picture. And I hope, moving forward, that we can find ways to not only honor Michael's name and remember him, but to continue the project that he dedicated his life to.
The main thing that's coming up for me now that it's been a few days since we got the news is not only how generous Michael was, but how serious he was about building a bench on the left. So he just paid such close attention to what people were saying on the left, and if he saw something that he liked, he would invite people onto his show, and regardless of whether or not they had a large platform. I mean, if they didn't have a large platform, I think he wanted to give them a platform, and this is exactly what happened to me. I mean, you know, Michael first invited me on his show when I'd been writing for Jacobin part-time for only a few months. I don't think anyone was paying attention to what I was doing except for probably Michael. And when he invited me on his show, it was the first time that anyone had ever invited me to talk about my political writing under any circumstances. So I was nervous, but he was just so easygoing, and he just guided me through that conversation, and he invited me back over and over again until, you know, I had built up my own confidence and I wasn't nervous anymore. And I think that was one of his finest attributes, and I think that was not just a personal attribute, but a part of his, you know, political project. And the other thing that's coming up a lot is that I think Michael was both ecumenical and principled. I think that, you know, he had a backbone. I mean, he would speak up and give his own opinion on certain ideas and debates, but he also he wasn't, you know, like developing a sort of like do not talk to list based on people who disagreed with him, and I think that's exemplary behavior on the left, and I want to be more like that.
Hey, Michael Brooks Show. It's Derek from the Foreign Exchanges newsletter. I wish I was joining you guys under happier circumstances. Michael had me on the program a number of times to talk about foreign policy, and I was always so honored for the chance to join him. I had him on my podcast a couple of times. You know, people have said so many nice things about him. So many people have said so many nice things about him since his passing, and I think that's a testament to how many people he touched, not just directly or personally, but through his work. The thing that always stuck out to me about Michael, you know, and people have talked about how funny he was and how intelligent and what a great podcaster he was, and all of those things are true. The thing that always stuck out the most to me about Michael was his compassion, and how global his compassion was. You know, Michael wasn't just somebody who wanted to make things better in the United States, although he certainly did want to do that. Michael wanted to make things better for everybody in the world, and he really felt that, and he lived that, and it was a major focus of his work. And I think that's not just a badly needed thing in the world these days. It's also, unfortunately, a rare thing, and it was always so amazing to watch him and to see that kind of come through in his work. He will be sorely missed, and my best thoughts and wishes go out to all of you and to his family and everyone who knew him.
I first encountered Michael through his show and was immediately struck by his intelligence, his humanity, and above all, his incredibly sharp wit. He had strong opinions, but they were rooted in knowledge, not in some knee-jerk reaction to the issues of the day. He would talk a lot, but he would listen a lot too. He would converse in the most essential term of the word. And we had many conversations over large numbers of glasses of wine. I grew up in South Africa and worked a lot in Israel and Palestine, the wider Middle East, and of course here in the United States. And we talked a lot about all those places. And for Michael, the mold always had to be broken. Nothing was restricted to geography. Apartheid was not something unique to South Africa, for example. It exists in Brazil and Israel, and here outside my apartment in Washington, D.C. In South Africa, there was a term called Ubuntu, which means humanity, a shared sense of humanity. It's essentially about that concept of self and others that transcends national binds, national tribe, race, gender. It transcends all of that and creates a sense of common oneness between everybody, wherever and whatever they are. But it's not a philosophy, it also depends on execution. And Michael was a prime executor of the concept of Ubuntu. He was well aware of the millions that lost their lives before their time in conflict against inequity in many parts of the world. In South Africa, there was a phrase for comrades who fell during the struggle and beyond. That phrase was Hambagashle, which means go softly, go peacefully, go gently. From me, Tamara and Kai, Hambagashle, Michael. Hambagashle.
I'm standing on the roof of my house in Sao Paulo. It's a place that I had invited Michael to visit next time he came down here. Shown him photos from up here, and he was excited and he was planning on it. We had some projects underway. I first became friends with him through his incredible support that he gave for our project at Brazil Wire. At a time when we were being basically ghosted by everyone in the U.S. media and even in the left media, aside from a few academic institutions and This Is Hell radio show in Chicago, Michael became one of our biggest, earliest supporters. It was a really big deal for us because until that point, a lot of people were not taking us seriously. Now time has shown that our analysis that the U.S. was involved in the 2016 coup and Lula's political imprisonment was correct. But for years, even though the information was publicly available, no one would talk about it. So about a year and a half ago, after Lula had been in jail for a few months, Michael started pestering me like, Brian, when are we going to interview Lula? Can you set this up for me? I was like, how am I going to do that? So we worked together. Finally, after he was released, they gave us the interview, and Michael came down here for a week, and he was ecstatic. And it was a time in which I really got to know him. And, you know, we didn't always agree on politics, especially stuff going on in other places around the world. I think it didn't matter because, like, a sign of a true friendship is that you don't always have to agree on everything. I valued his friendship and his support very deeply, and my heart goes out to his family, his friends, and his supporters. And it's just not going to be the same without him.
There's so many things I could say right now, but I also find myself at such a loss for words. But what I will say about Michael is that I have never met anyone so gracious with their platform, so eager to share. Not only was he really freaking smart because he's the most well-read person I have ever met, but he just would imbue his intellectual curiosity with a lot of emotional intelligence, and it's just something that is really rare to find, especially in an industry that can be pretty cynical like media and politics, and that's something I've always admired and appreciated, and so grateful that I had an experience to, experience that. I just want to say, in the words of Michael Brooks himself, our final conversation when he was checking in on me after my father had passed, when I told him I was just hanging in there, he said, "Good, we need your voice." And that's something I think I'm going to be taking with me and carrying on with me, because his voice was so instrumental to my own development, and I think the only way to honor him is to continue that work and continue to carry on his voice and our voices in the struggle ahead. Thank you, Michael. Love you so much.
Hey, it's Corey Pine. There's a lot I could say about Michael's generosity, his spirituality, and his humor. Many others already have. Every time I think about something that might have made Michael laugh, a new character or something like that, I get sad. But I also laugh to myself thinking about what his reaction might have been. I want to talk a little about the work he was doing and why it was so important, why it's on all of us to make sure it continues. Building socialism requires, more than anything, an educated people. And fundamentally, Michael was an educator. By putting his show on YouTube, he took education to people right where they lived. I was looking through some of the comments on his show after he died, and I saw a young person mentioning how Michael saved them from becoming a reactionary right-winger. There's a lot of stories like that. Today, with fascism thriving out in the open and constant propaganda pushing people in that direction, I can't imagine more important work than what Michael was doing. And we all need to think about how we can carry on that work without the tremendous asset that was Michael's voice. He clearly resonated with people. And even beyond his work, simply as a friend, he made a huge difference in people's lives. He certainly did in mine. I miss him a lot. I wish we talked more before he died. Keep close to your friends, folks, and remember that education is the key. That's how I will be trying to honor Michael and his memory. Much love to all of you at TMBS. Please stay in touch, okay?
Michael's passing is first and foremost, of course, an immense personal loss for his family and friends, and all my love and solidarity goes out to them. It's also obviously a huge loss for our movement, for the international movement, for socialism and for a better future, which Michael was an integral part of. Now, when I think of Michael, I think the first thing I think of is I think of the infectious laugh he had, and how he brought humour and humility and sincerity to everything he looked into and engaged with. And I think of him also, importantly, as an educator, as somebody who made a crucial contribution to raising the level of analysis on the US left and connecting that up with the broader international left. I know Michael, like myself, was heavily influenced by the work and the ideas of Amilcar Cabral, and Cabral had this injunction for revolutionaries that they should never stop learning, that they should learn from books, learn from conversations, learn from the struggles of others, and that's clearly something Michael took to heart. And because he was always learning, because that was a commitment he made, that made him such an important communicator and educator, and he's done our movement an immense service. And even though Michael has passed, the work he did and the work that will be carried on by his friends and family will make a crucially important contribution to any movement we build, looking to develop a better future for all of us. So he'll be missed, but his work will carry on. Rest in power, brother.
Myself and Michael really became friends in the last 9 months with the defeats of the Corbyn and Bernie projects. We'd be in touch every few days, talking about the latest disaster to befall the left, allowing ourselves some disillusionment, but always with the eye on how do we build back, how do we win next time. And that is how I will remember Michael Brooks. I will remember him as somebody who got things done on the left, somebody who was a pioneer of socialist media, somebody who had these boundless ambitions, and even though too many of them weren't realised because his life was cut short, so many of them were, even in that short time that he was alive. The number of people who he converted to socialism, the number of people who he tutored through and who developed different worldviews through connecting with Michael, the number of new projects and institutions that he built. And he was a tremendously humane guy, somebody who would never forget to drop you a message in the midst of all of it, making sure you were okay. And his last Tribune piece, Michael said, talking about the Bernie campaign, we built this great ship. We didn't get it to where we wanted to go, but now we have to take it to some other place. And I think of Michael and his legacy in the same way. Michael built a great ship, and now that he has passed on, the onus is on all of the rest of us involved in socialist media and who knew him to take that ship to somewhere that befits the contributions he made. Much love to you all at the Michael Brooks Show.
Hey everyone, I'm Luke Mayville, friend of Michael's since 2008 when we first met in Turkey. I'm also the professor who sent in Michael's direction my student David Griscom, someone who I'm very proud of, someone I know Michael was very proud of. Something David said the other day really struck me. When he was on the Majority Report, David said that Michael would never let him be hard on himself. That was who Michael was. In my case, it was, begging me not to be overly sincere about everything. He knew I had a sense of humor. He wanted me to laugh. He hated humorlessness. Michael hated sanctimony and moralism, everything that held us back from being the best versions of ourselves. I think that Michael saw in us, his coworkers, his friends, many of his listeners, a spark of greatness. He didn't necessarily think that we had the same talents that he had or the same calling, but he saw in each of us a unique expression of what is humanly possible, and he wanted to help us live up to that. He wanted us all to join together in this fight for a better world, but I think that Michael believed firmly that the only way we'd have a chance of winning that fight is if we brought our full humanity to it. That was his humanism. That's one thing that he'll always be remembered for. I miss Michael so much. Thank you so much to all of you for doing this tribute. Peace to you all. Love you all. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Hey everyone, I thought I would do this video from one of my favorite hikes in Los Angeles. No, it's not Runyon, but the reason why I wanted to do this video, remembering and celebrating Michael from this location is because it's one of the places that I would go to for solitude while also listening to the Michael Brooks Show. LA is, obviously a very densely populated place, and sometimes I just kind of need to get away from everyone and everything. And it's kind of a funny thing to say when I'm consuming political news through the Michael Brooks Show while I'm looking for peace and solitude. I've laughed and, gotten angry and felt all these emotions along with the audience that watches this show. And afterwards, I always felt better. And it's because I always came away from TMBS learning something new and feeling like I was hanging out with friends and having a conversation with people who just get it. Being on the left, you can feel super lonely sometimes. You feel like people don't really get it. And, this was really my place of refuge. And I would usually listen to the Michael Brooks Show while I did this hike. So I just wanted to quickly show you guys what this looks like. It's really beautiful. I like this hike because not a lot of people come here. But anyway, much love to everyone over at TMBS, David, Matt, Ben, all of you guys. Please keep up the good fight. Please keep doing what you're doing. I know that Michael wouldn't have it any other way. And, I'm going to be thinking about you guys and Michael every time I do this hike. And I'm hoping that you guys still keep putting out the incredibly important content that you've been putting out. Love you guys.
Michael Brooks is one of the smartest cats, most brilliant dudes I've ever met in my life. He had a way of synthesizing information, so many different points of information and historical analyses into usable talking points, usable positions. He was really the brightest among us, if you ask me. I think he was the brightest amongst all of us. And I think that's why his work has to continue. I believe that he poured out everything that he had. I don't think he held anything back. And what he gave us prior to his death is enough for us to learn from for decades to come. And so I think his work absolutely has to continue. And I'm so excited about the fact that his family and his friends are insisting that his legacy is his work and that continues. We're going to miss Michael, man. He was one of the first people to give me an opportunity to be heard. At least 4 years ago was one of the first times he brought me on the Majority Report. And from there, other opportunities came. And a lot of my supporters, in fact, I think probably 25% of the people who support me found me through the Majority Report because Michael brought me on. So, so much love and condolences and all that we have to his family, to the friends and supporters of the Majority Report. And let's keep his work alive. Love all of you.
Michael Brooks rooted for others. He possessed a wealth of talents. He was capable of deep and critical thinking and shared his thoughts by processing complicated ideas and distilling them down into readable prose and witty conversation. Michael was a reader, a thinker, a writer, and a comedian. Because he was also born into a wealth of leftist values, he shared it all. He gave it all away because he didn't suffer from the bane of most men's existence. He wasn't born with a pathological competitive streak. He genuinely rooted for others, and that's a hard thing to do. to root for others. Michael was young enough to be my son, and the first thing I thought when I met him was, I wish I could fix him up with my daughter. Michael bridged the generations. He pointed the way forward to his peers, and for people of my demographic, he pointed the way backwards to remind us of the world we, until recently, had given up on. He gently nudged me out of my neoliberal haze without making me feel stupid, and showed me a better way, and that is to root for others. One of the comforts to getting older is knowing the people you love never leave. If you miss Michael, he's right in front of you. All you have to do is choose to root for others. Trust me, every time you root for someone else, it will be like Michael never left. So root for others, unless, of course, their names are Dave Rubin or Barry Weiss.
I'm incredibly honored to have the opportunity to talk about the life of Michael Brooks, as well as his work and the friendship that I was so fortunate to have developed with him. As you might imagine, our interaction began because of what I would call his passion for, maybe even his obsession with and fixation on Brazil in the best possible sense of that term. And I remember when he first started chasing after me, wanting to talk constantly about Brazil, I couldn't really figure out what was motivating him. Needless to say, there aren't very American leftists or Americans of any kind that fascinated with Brazilian politics. I thought maybe he had this kind of romanticized image of who Lula was, not this very complex figure, but maybe this, idealized left-wing guru or icon that was driving him. Or I thought maybe he had friends or family in Brazil. And the more I talked to him, I saw two things. One was that his knowledge about Brazilian politics was as sophisticated and informed and advanced as any American I know, including Brazil experts and think tanks and among journalists and writers. It was not just some passing kind of symbolic gesture for him. It was something in which he was so deeply invested intellectually and politically and emotionally. And the other more important thing that I learned was about his motivation. What was motivating it was nothing more than his belief, not really in vogue any longer, that central to left-wing politics has to be the idea of international solidarity with other working-class citizens of countries and with other left-wing movements. Something talked a lot about in the 60s and 70s on the left, but barely ever anymore. How often do we talk on the left about what's done to the global south, about coups in Bolivia and Honduras, what's happening in Brazil, the treatment of Palestine? Not very often. And his view that he taught me, he really revitalized my understanding of and interest in this principle, was that you can't have a meaningful left-wing politics if you're focused solely on your first world country, that the movement becomes so much more powerful strategically, but also so much more moral and ethical when it becomes international in scope. And so Michael was one of the few people insisting and urging that the left talk about Palestinians and Bolivians and Brazilians and so many other people in countries that is far too easy to ignore. And it became the basis of our friendship. But ultimately, what really made me admire Michael as a person was the fact that there were times when he would devote a segment to doing nothing more than criticizing a position of mine, and I would watch it ready to be angry or defensive, and I ended up with none of those things because he always spoke with such good faith, particularly about those he was criticizing, never distorting the views he wanted to dissect, but giving them their most generous interpretation. And so by the end, you end up learning from his criticisms instead of walking away antagonistic or angry. And there's so few people about whom that's true. And it's such an inspiring and valuable attribute. I'm so proud of the fact that the last time I tweeted about Michael's show was a segment where he and his two colleagues criticized me unflinchingly, not in a partial way, but in a full-scale way, and I did it simply because it was so illuminating for me personally, and I thought it would be for others as well.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I know it's not a great time for anyone right now. 2020 has been terrible to say the least, but what happened with Michael is by far one of the most terrible things to come out of 2020. And it's hit us all pretty hard. And it's hit us all pretty hard. And I don't really know what else to say except Michael was a great person, a great human being, a great friend, and also a great teacher and a great entertainer. A great thing about Michael, a wonderful thing about Michael, is that he could take things that could normally be dry in the wrong hands, important things that weren't always things that people were drawn to naturally, like politics, history, international affairs, things of that nature that were important to know, but weren't always fun in many people's hands. He made them entertaining. He made them things that you wanted to tune into and learn more about every week and wanted to compile books on and read. I learned a ton about international politics and history and socialism from him that I didn't know. I looked forward to spending more time with him, both in real life as a friend and also exchanging appearances on each other's shows and continuing to learn from each other and teach each other. And unfortunately, that's been taken away from us. But a great thing is that he left behind a body of work that we can not only keep revisiting, but I think a lot of people are going to keep discovering down the line. And I look forward to what you guys do with the space. I know it's going to be great, and I definitely hope you guys continue to use the energy and chemistry and fire that has propelled you guys all this time to make something great and new with the space. We'll all be watching for it, and I look forward to it.
Hey guys, it's Crystal Ball. You know, the thing that to me was so incredibly special and unique about Michael and what he shared and modeled for those of us who were lucky enough to get to know him, and certainly for his fans and his viewers, was this absolute commitment to intellectual fierceness. Didn't matter if the project of exploration brought him somewhere uncomfortable, somewhere messy, somewhere that maybe was uncomfortable for the people who was watching his show or for somebody on our own side. He would follow the track wherever it led. And I think it was part of his incredibly idealistic view. I mean, he really acted in the world. None of us can know what our actions or what we do is ultimately going to lead to, but he really thought that exploration for truth, engaged in a way of solidarity, in a way where we were all pushing in that same direction, would lead to a better world. He thought more was possible than I've allowed myself to believe. Really believing in this international vision of solidarity, of global solidarity, in fighting for the dignity of every single human being on the planet, not just confining himself to domestic concerns. That fierceness of idealism, that bravery is what I'm going to take with me from knowing Michael Brooks.
Hi, this is Harvey K. I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I miss Michael just like we all do. And I can tell you that the last few years, when I really got to know Michael well, I mean, before that we had conversations, but especially these last 3 years, I was just blown away by Michael's intelligence, his energy, his commitment to internationalism, his commitment to history, his commitment to politics, his commitment to making history, to making a better history. So we all know that, okay? And I can reiterate that over and over again as I've been doing on other podcast shows. But I want to say something very specifically about what really, really impressed me about Michael that extended beyond his own talents. And that was that whenever I went to the studio, and I always made it a point of arriving early before I would be going on, and I always made it a point of staying on for the post game, because not only was it so much fun to be with Michael. And not only did he enable me to speak to a generation that I get in the classroom, but I don't get to speak otherwise to.
Hi, it's Alona Minkowski, and I just want to thank you for allowing me to say a few words about Michael. It's obviously been an incredibly sad and painful and difficult time for all of us who knew him and cared about him. And I just want to say thank you to him. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to call him my friend. I want to say thank you for all of the support and advice that he gave me over the years, and I hope I was able to provide some of that in return. And I think that that's, one of the things that really made him unique is that Michael not only pushed on a global, massive scale for people to be treated equally and to be good to each other, but he also really embodied that as a person in his individual relationships that he had. And I think that that's rare to find that combination. I am so glad that I got to be a part of the show over the years and have silly moments where it showed up in my tracksuit, or where, I got to come in and talk about Russia and serious foreign policy with Michael. And then, of course, he'd put a couple beers in front of me and it would trail off into me saying ridiculous things by the end of the show. And I want to, try to think of moments like that and smile and laugh and remember the really amazing and good times. So my heart goes out to every single one of you who knew him, who cared about him, especially his family and loved ones, the TMBS and Majority Report family. And, Michael, I miss you. You were taken from us all way too soon. And I hope you know the impact and the influence that you had on so many of us, myself included.
It's also because he had an incredible show, which included a phenomenal crew of David and Matt. I mean, David's commentaries often blew me away. I mean, I could not believe just how smart, just how critical regarding economic affairs they were. And I marveled at David, and I will always do so. And Matt, what really impressed me about Matt is, I may be exaggerating, but this is as I recall it, if Michael and I somehow forgot something, some kind of reference, whether it was popular culture or otherwise, Matt seemed to have it. He could just come right in and finish a sentence if we were stuck on it, okay? I mean, I cried the other times that I spoke of Michael, and one of the ways I may be avoiding that is by speaking of Matt and David, but I just loved the three of them together. And I always made it a point of arranging my trips to New York so that I could be there on a Tuesday night, because Michael and I had an understanding that I would do illicit histories by phone, but I would only do the show in studio selfishly because I wanted to be with those three. Not to mention the brilliant Ben Burgess and his takedowns, most often in the post game against right-wing hacks, okay? So, listen, Matt, David, you guys are spectacular. I miss Michael. I'll miss our times in the studio. And I love you guys.
Greetings, sisters and brothers. This is Milton Ali Mahdi, publisher of Black Star News and adjunct professor of African history at John Jay College, and Michael Brooks' friend and comrade. Michael was a special individual. Michael wanted to improve the lives of everyone that he got in touch with, and even people he never met. He wanted people to become the very best in life. That is why this loss is just so hard to take. Because you ask yourself, why is it that the person who wants to improve the lives of others taken away? His precious life is gone. And for those who continue, their lives are less rich because they'll never benefit from Michael's counsel ever again. This loss to me reminds me when I lost my beloved sister, Barbara, in April, I kept saying, please, if she must go, let me have that one last conversation with her. Obviously, that will not happen. I will also never have that one last conversation with Michael. But I'm happy to say I did have a last conversation with Michael last Thursday. Michael, rest in peace. You've laid the seeds of something that will never die. The evidence is all the outpouring of warmth and affection from all over the world. People that are determined to do their part to make this world slightly better before we too part. So, a luta continua. Victoria Asata. Until we meet again. Comrade Michael.
Well, my mother died in November, a very wise person. I noticed the difficulties I was having, and what he told me was really the only value we can ever find in the death of people we love is to focus on what they left us and to try and maximize its value in our lives. And Michael really did leave so much for all of us as a political activist, as a journalist, a commentator, an analyst, but mostly as a person. And I know he's taught me so much, and I'm going to focus on those things that he had uniquely to show us that could make us all better as human beings and as a movement and in our politics. And I hope everyone will do the same. Obviously, his death is incredibly horrible and tragic, and my deepest condolences go out to those who knew him best and loved him most. But I also do think that there's this opportunity for us to focus on why he triggered so much affection when he died, not just in the United States, but in Brazil and other places. How many people would that be true for? That shows how special he was and how much he has to teach us all. Thanks very much.
Michael Brooks, there's too much to say about you in 90 seconds. You were Willie Mays. You were Oscar Robertson. You had power. You had speed. You had skill. You had vision. You had range. You had range. You stuffed the fucking box score, dude. And out of that vastness, that abundance that was Michael Brooks, I just want to pluck one word tonight. One word. We know Michael was funny as hell. We know he was funny globally. We knew he was funny locally. His Connor Kilpatrick attempting to canvass a small town in New Hampshire for Bernie Sanders cracked me the fuck up. It cracked me up harder than anything I ever saw on his show. And that was, he just tossed that shit off, you know? But when it comes to politics, the word I want to use for Michael tonight is responsible. Responsibility is not a big concept on the left, right? The right has made it a buzzword for years, personal responsibility. But just to get professorial for a second, if you look at the etymology, responsible, what does it mean? It means answerable, from the Latin respondere, to respond, to answer, to promise in return, to pledge. And that was Michael. There were others in his role that were just as funny, just as smart, just as quick, just as global even, but very few on the left that I knew are responsible in that way, in the sense of answering to someone larger than himself, in the sense of promising everything to something larger than himself, and the depth of that promise, understanding it, the seriousness of it. The left has guts, the left has wit, the left doesn't always have that profound sense of responsibility that Michael had, and we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it like hell. I miss you, Michael.
What I love about Michael, I think I can sum up in who he actually got starstruck around. Because there's only 3 people that he ever got kind of bashful about interviewing or talking to. And it was these 3 people. It was anyone from the podcast Cumtown, Stav and Adam. I remember him talking about how nervous he was to interview Adam from Cumtown, which is really hilarious. Adolph Reed, who he had immense respect for, and was someone that Michael had a wonderful friendship with, and Lula. And I think that just says a lot about Michael, which is that he, at the same time as he was this really just like Yoda-esque socialist figure, like who was wise beyond his years. At the same time, he was very humble and trying to figure stuff out. He was a regular guy, and he was a really funny guy. And I'm thinking about one of our last Zooms we did where he did one of his recurring characters, which should probably remain private, but it was the best thing it was one of the best things that happened to me in months, was honestly just that Zoom with Michael in the middle of this awful coronavirus lockdown, just getting to talk with him like everything's okay. But what it says about him is that he was a regular guy at the same time as he was this kind of, brilliant and important figure on the left, but who he prized actually making a difference in people's lives more than any subcultural thing, more than any catechism. And that's why at the end of the day, it's Lula. So Lula, Adolph Reed, and Come Town. I miss you, Michael.
It's super rare to find someone in this industry like Michael Brooks. Someone who was entirely principled, 100%, and we had disagreements. But what was so wonderful about Michael was that he was never disingenuous, not in his interactions with everyday people, with me, with his friends, and in his political analysis. He held his principles so dear to his heart, and so I knew what I was seeing was what I was getting with Michael. And that's a huge rarity in this industry. It's way rarer than I think a lot of people realize. Michael was principled, but he was also really fun. Like, being around Michael was genuinely one of the most fun experiences I've had in my short time working in political media, because he never punched down, and he always took the fight to the more powerful people and the more powerful actors and institutions. And even when he was talking to regular people, it was the same deal. Genuinely good person, super loyal friend, and an actor in politics who was fighting for the greater good on both a macro scale and on a micro scale. He was focused, and that's really what sticks out to me. And I miss Michael very much because he was an emotional support system for me and so many others, and was always there with a kind word of reassurance. And I wish some of this stuff I could have said to him when he was still here. So, Michael, you're very, very much missed.
Hey everyone, Matt Binder here. It's weird to do this show, the Michael Brooks show, without Michael Brooks. But I want to take this time to really remember him, because he meant so much to so many people. I think everyone has their own unique Michael Brooks story. But for me, I met Michael, 8 years ago now. In 2012, I was working at the Majority Report with Sam Seder, and Sam had just hired Michael, who was just, a young guy from Massachusetts who wanted to do, political talk online. And, it was a brand new world then, in 2012. Live streaming and YouTube streaming and live online podcasting, it was all, and I had the pleasure to do that with Michael, every day. We sat side by side next to each other and worked on the show and produced and before the show and after the show, just talking about politics and, cracking jokes, and it was always fun with Michael. It truly is a time in my life that I'll never forget. It'll always be with me. He's been such a influence really on all of us, but on me in ways that I think our friendship really speaks to our friendship. I remember when he first launched the Michael Brooks show. and I had to joke with him because we share the same initials, both first name and last name, and we did the Matt and Mike show, the Matt and Mike on Mondays on the Majority Report for so long, and I got to watch him grow as a host. Always a smart, funny guy, but I got to watch him really develop as an on-air, in front of all you, a talent on air. And talent is a great way, I think, to just describe Michael all around. Just a very talented guy in so many aspects. So many people. There's people who are good at maybe one, maybe two things, and Michael was just the total package. Where anything he set himself out, set his heart to do, he did, and he did it really, really good. You could just look at his work, a show, a live show, empire he was building, a book that he just got published. So yeah, when he did this show, the Michael Brooks Show, when he launched it, I was so, after knocking him for the TMBS, stealing, I couldn't do the Matt Binder show. But that was the relationship we had, always joking. And I think that's what we need to, and I know some of you know him for his impressions and everything, and that's what we need to keep going here, fill this emptiness that we probably are all feeling right now. We're still in shock with this news, with the fact that we have to keep fighting for what Michael, fought for, social justice issues, fighting for the poor, equality for everyone, and at the same time doing it in a way where it's just funny and fun to do, because if you don't, you'll go crazy yourself, So, it's, there's so much to say about Michael. It's just, I wish it wasn't, under these circumstances. I wish it was. But on a positive note, carry Michael's legacy on. That's what we really have to do. And do it with a smile, because that's really what he would have wanted. Love you, Michael.
Been